In a world where Carolina Panthers fans have an insatiable thirst for Panthers news and opinions, only one podcast roars ferociously. It's the C3 Panthers Podcast.
What's up, folks? It is perfect. It's the C3 Panthers Podcast coming to you live Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. We're on time. I'm hoping the audio is right. The visuals look good. I look good. I know that. And we're hanging out in the Vivid Seats studio tonight. And tonight's show is Lis Be FRanc About It. Cody Lashney, welcome back. We just hung out on Sunday. It was a joyous event. But boy, guess what we got to talk about first and foremost?
Well, let's be frank. We're all a bunch of handsome gentlemen. So we bless your computer, phone screens, whatever you're watching on tonight. The chat room is absolutely lit, as it always is. Michael Jones, Underground West, Legacy Lynn, Jake DeLone, Richard's Outdoor World. Man, it's already lit in the chat room. Tony Dunn, ain't nothing to it but to do it, brother. Let's roll.
There's a packed house tonight. Greg, the Bat Daddy, is back for more. How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
I am, man, I'm just like a normal Tuesday, dude. Is the busiest day of the week for me is Tuesday. But I'm ready. I'm ready to talk some Panthers, and I'm glad to have you on the show tonight. Where can they find you on Twitter real quick?
Oh, man, you can find me at the BatDaddy52 on Twitter, or you can get a hold of me at SCS Podcast 1 on Twitter from a handle from my other show.
And we got.
I was going to say, though, it's hard not to feel good after a Panthers win, no matter how we got it.
That's the truth.
Got the first one out of the way.
Even if it was by 1 point, we would be happy. After losing so many in a row, it feels like a year since we've lost. Since we've won one. Also in the house tonight to help us figure where the Panthers are at and where we're headed. CK, man, welcome back.
Hey boys, how's it going?
We are rocked, locked, and ready to roll. And guys, we have a fantastic show tonight. Tonight's show is Lis Be FRanc About It. We're going to be talking about Cam Newton and the reported lisfranc injury that was broken yesterday by Joe Person in The Athletic. We will be talking about that game, that win over Arizona, not as in depth as we did in the post game show, but we gotta kind of recheck our temperature, how we feel, and see if things have changed. On top of that, we've got a preview tonight of the Houston Texans game. I'm telling you guys, we've got Brandon Scott to help break us down, and there's the picks. We got the picks to make for the NFC South, and I got the head odds maker from MyBookie.ag to jump on the show with a little 8-minute pre-recorded talk on the NFC South, and then we'll make our picks after that. So we got a lot to do. Don't forget to smash the thumbs up button, be a part of the show by jumping in that chat room that Cody was complimenting, and they deserve compliments. And if you're heading to the game, don't forget to check out Vivid Seats. They can help you get the ticket you need at the price you want. And if you use the overtime promo code, and when you use the mobile app, you can save up to $100 on your first ticket purchase for first-time customers. All right. And guys, let's go ahead and jump into it. The news. Where there is smoke, there was fire. And Cody, we have been suspicious. We have been suspicious about the severity of the situation with Cam. It's caused us to question how he's doing after a long history of injury. We've gone down the mental road, we've gone down the emotional road, and we have always been highlighting the physical road. But I tell you, is that it seemed like more than a small little foot sprain. Where are you at? The news breaks. This is related to his lisfranc. They have not reported if he will need surgery or anything. They want to rehab it. Cody, are you worried? Did you know this was there?
Well, no. I mean, it's really kind of shame on myself and shame on anyone that believed Ron Rivera when he said that Cam Newton was fine and everything was okay and it was a non-issue. I feel like we just should have known better after seeing how he treated Cam during the whole shoulder debacle through 2016 and 2018. So it's not surprising that it's that kind of an injury if it was affecting him that much. But man, a Lis Franc that just comes out of nowhere, man. It doesn't feel good, but we really don't have a lot to go on. So right now, I mean, I put it in the chat room. People are typing it. It's Kyle Allen season, baby. And let's see where this train takes us.
Any thoughts, fellas, on you hear Lis Franc, and it's usually a scary thing when you hear it. When you look it up, it's the smallest little thing you would ever think. But it's like this little in-between bone and cartilage point. I think that looks like it's on the ball of your foot. So where you're going to walk all the time and put a lot of weight. This is an injury that Matt Khalil had back in 2012, I believe. And usually if you do have to have surgery, you're going to be out the whole season, or at least it was in the past. I've read about it a little bit, and they say non-surgical recovery, which they usually highlight for non-athletes, though, is a 4 to 8 week waiting period. Now, Greg, where are we at on this injury? Because is this a misdiagnosis by the team? Was it made worse? And do you really think it's the foot?
Well, I think it definitely has something to do with the foot. I don't know what to believe anymore, though. I really don't, because we've gone through a point with Cam Newton where, with his injuries, where he's injured himself. We tried to rehab it, and then it ends up having to have surgery anyway. So I'm kind of at the point of just go ahead and have surgery, because I would rather him come back, have a full season, and next off season to recover if he has to have surgery, rather than deciding around draft time he needs surgery and him being ready right before training camp, just like we've always done to him. And I don't want to see Cam Newton come back 900%, because if he comes back and doesn't do well, I'm going to start to lose faith in him. And I don't want that. I don't want that. I still haven't. But if he comes back and doesn't, at least, he's not at least on the Dalton scale where he's, a mid-tier quarterback, good enough to win a Super Bowl, good enough to get us by, I'm going to start to lose faith, and I just don't want to do that.
CK, the reason I ask is, Greg, is it the foot? Is my friend brought up an interesting point to me today, and we know that Ron is not the most transparent when it comes to injury talk, right? And my friend said this, is I just never saw him limping or, kind of gingering that foot in that game. And he said that a lot of times that he believes that coaching staffs will point to an injury to tell the opponents, the media, kind of to distract from another real injury. And this is what he said. He was worried that it's truly the shoulder that's the problem, and the foot is the smoke screen for it. I think that's a lot of factors, a lot of moving parts in that explanation, but they have been somewhat secretive about this foot injury, don't you think?
I think so too, but the injury itself, before this week, I would have been a lot more concerned about the timetable we're dealing with. I think we've, seen that we have somewhat of a capable backup. Within Kyle Allen, we'll see a true test this week. My main concern, and we're all kind of, I think glossing over an important fact of that article that Joe wrote. It said that there was a camps. What was it Cam's camp trying to say, hey, listen, he's not ready to play, or was the Panthers saying, hey, listen, we're going to be good things?
All right, so slightly breaking up there a little bit, CK. Actually, you're frozen right now, so leave and come back. I really need to hear what he said. I missed it. Did anybody catch it? Yeah. I think it had to be. I think it was something to the effect of, with the article, how Cam didn't want to run. I'm interested to see that and hear what he's saying. It says this is what the article reports. Multiple sources confirm Newton is dealing with a Lis Franc injury in which the ligaments of the midfoot rupture, causing instability with the joints. Some Lis Franc's injuries involve trauma to small bones in the foot. And although the Panthers' initial wording that Newton has sustained a midfoot sprain would suggest it is ligament related. Now, one of the things that was interesting about this, did you see in the beginning of the article, Joe Person described it the last week after bungling the PR side of Cam Newton's foot injury last week. The Panthers moved quickly to try to prevent any additional mixed messages or bad optics. CK, you broke up right when you were telling us what the real interesting thing was. So we've all been sitting here wondering what is so interesting.
Patiently.
Yes.
So it's that there was the phrase there was a disagreement between the two camps, right? There was a disagreement between Cam's camp about the severity of it, but we don't know whose side was on what side of the fence, right? We don't know whether the Panthers were saying, "Hey, we don't want to play you," and Cam was like, "I want to play." And then at that point, yeah, it's somewhat on the coaches at that point, because you're like, "Hey, listen, we've got to make a decision to sit you, even though you don't want to." But if it's the Cam's side of things didn't want to play and the coaches were like, "You've got to play," that is a situation where it deserves being fired right then and there. When you're talking about a situation like this.
And I do feel that CK is onto something. I really, now more than ever, I feel that there is a friction and a tension between Cam and the coaching staff. I feel like maybe there's something of a disconnect. And I don't want this to get lost on people. Man, I feel bad for Cam. I feel like Cam was really making an effort this year to be the type of passer that everyone said he was never going to be. I mean, he dropped a lot of pounds. I mean, he's really, tried to change up the throwing motion. And then now for this to happen, I mean, the man has 2 more years to prove that he's worth a brand new contract, worth a whole lot of money. So you have to feel for him.
I have heard this is an easily misdiagnosed injury because it's very difficult to see, because it's dealing with such a small part of the foot, I think, or at least that is what I've been told. But we've been saying there was something strange in the neighborhood when there was no real indication of like how Cam could potentially play through this, or about pain management, or when they were optimistic. There was something odd going on. And last week, Norv Turner said a lot of guys go out and play with a sore shoulder, sore knee, sore foot, whatever it might be. But this week, they're saying there's no exact timetable for his return. I feel like Joe did use some quotes here that were very pointed to maybe give us the idea that Norv Turner's like, "Hey, get on out there and a sore foot," or whatever it is. Actually, he speaks all slow and southern. But
hey, baby,
yeah.
Foot, even if it's sore, baby. Yeah, football.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So we've turned Norv into Austin Powers at this point.
Yes. Exactly.
Hey, so, real quick, kind of touching on what CK was saying, I have noticed it seems like this year, different than any other year that we've had Cam, it seems like there is a disconnect between the franchise. I'm not talking about just fans, the franchise and himself. It's always seemed like the franchise, the owner, the head coach, everybody's loved him. And for some reason this year, it seems like that's fallen off a little bit. Do you think that has anything to do with Tepper taking over? Do you think maybe Tepper is not sold on Cam? He gave him his first couple years to see if he was sold on him, and now he's not so much?
I mean, listen, it's certainly possible. When you have a brand new owner who just spent that much money, and he wants a winning football team, and he comes from a winning football team. I don't know what Tepper thinks of Cam, if he knows all the details that we know about his time here, and not having enough talent around him on the exterior and on the offensive line. Maybe Tepper knows that. Maybe he thinks that, what the media believes, that Cam Newton's an average quarterback. I don't know what David Tepper believes, but if he believes the latter, then it's easy to see why you would draft a Will Grier in the 3rd round to have a quarterback there in case Cam Newton falters. So it's certainly possible.
I think that this might be more about between the coaching staff and Cam. All right. And I think there's some softer things at play here. And what I mean by that is that Ron Rivera and Norv Turner, there's a good chance those guys are coming back. Aren't coming back. On top of that, Cam Newton is somewhat in jeopardy because of the lengthy history of injuries he's now developing, right? Is that now, it's something almost every year. and it hasn't been intermittent. And then the other thing is you're entering a year in the contract that you can get out without a ton of financial penalty, or you could stay in it for one more year without a ton of financial penalty. And what I mean by that is that I don't think they're going to be interested in signing Cam to a long-term deal until they get a full healthy season out of him. But I think Ron Rivera and them need him this year to be good. And you saw a couple of things, is that Ron Rivera in the first press conference, when he was asked about not taking deep shots or running, he said that's a lot of the decision making by the quarterback. Again, I saw what I thought Greg is alluding to, some certain signs of frustration from Ron Rivera when discussing Cam Newton. Now, this could be about Cam Newton and he's just tired of answering the questions, but he did seem it almost like they're just not on the same page when it comes to communication about this injury. But then I think about this, guys. All I saw was Ron Rivera and Cam Newton have an excellent relationship in that All or Nothing show. So it's kind of hard for me to think that I don't understand how it could have gotten that bad in the past or at this moment, unless there was truly a misdiagnosis or two different feelings about how you should truly approach it. And guys, the last question about this, and then we'll get into some calls. What do you think Cam wants to do about this? And say this is, if you have an injury that you suspect is more than just a foot sprain and you're concerned about it being worse, what do you think Cam wants to do in regards to his season and the idea of signing contracts in the future? He does have to protect those interests to a large degree. Do you think that he has any ideas about how he should treat this?
I mean, I'm sure he wants to play as soon as possible. I mean, listen, we've already sort of started to see how this goes. I mean, if Kyle Allen balls out as he did against the Cardinals, he's going to have a few really stiff tests. Man, the NFL stands for not for long. And, I feel as though it might be a scenario where he knows next year they only have to pay $2 million. Even if they moved on from Cam Newton after this season, the Panthers only owe him $2 million. That's nothing. Cam Newton is on a bargain contract right now, especially when you compare it to other quarterbacks in the NFL. So I imagine Cam doesn't want to waste time at all. Bet on yourself and try and come back as soon as possible. If I was him, but I don't know what's going through his mind right now.
Any thoughts on how Cam, I mean, there does seem to be some sort of discord between them a little bit, right? And maybe we just haven't heard from Cam and he's just avoiding it. Maybe we're kind of making it up. Do you think Greg, what do you think the frustration could be? Do you think it is Tepper, or do you think, is that where your mind goes to? Because mine went to the coaching staff. You said Tepper. Did we lose Greg?
You're muted, man.
I'm muted?
No, Greg is.
Greg is. Greg's muted. All right, CK, why don't you jump in on that contract question, then we'll get into the calls.
Well, I mean, obviously I think that he's going to want to try to get back as soon as possible because I feel like Cam is an ultimate competitor. I don't think, and I listened to the podcast, obviously, for the post game, and we kind of glossed over the fact Cam wasn't out there. There was a couple of mentions on it, but if I had to recall, most times when anybody else has had an injury, they've always typically been on the sideline cheering on their team in some capacity. And the fact that he didn't travel with the team, I think that's a bigger deal than we're making it out to be. Then, just based on what I know about what I've seen, when Wentz went down, he was out there making sure Foles had the plays. He was making sure the plays were getting into the play caller on the time. When anybody goes down, I mean, Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson for the Eagles, they were out there making sure that the plays were, making sure they were cheering on their teammates. And I just didn't understand why Cam wasn't. And I think it speaks volumes if he's not going to travel to Houston. Me personally, I think it's shown that there's a disconnect, and the fact that he didn't even show up to practice, and the fact that he wanted to look in the mirror and do some soul searching. I just don't know where Cam's state of mind is, and if the Panthers is where he wants to be anymore. I mean, you think he doesn't see the comments on every Facebook page, every YouTube video, every article that's written about how we should move on from him? He's been garbage for the past year, past 2 years, past 3 years. He hasn't done anything for us since 2015. I think those things can wear down on a player, especially when somebody who's been so important to a franchise like Cam's been to the Panthers.
Yeah, I think you got to just wonder if it's this. There's probably if this is only injury related and it's really the foot, right? If it's really just that, not shoulder involved really in it, you got to think there's two ways that this could happen. Is that the team wants him to come back faster than he wants to come back, and I don't think he wants to slow down the process, but he could say, I want to get fully right before I come back. And they're like, play through it. There could be that. Or it could be the opposite. Is Cam's pushing to come back, and the team is saying, we don't want to treat it like that, maybe handle it poorly. I don't know what the other scenarios could be involved with that, but we'll see what the callers got to say. The number where you guys are listening to the C3 Panthers podcast, the number is 252-228-5098. And you guys are great. Look, the chat room is lit. Be sure to smash the thumbs up button. Be a part of the show. Let's see what you guys got to say.
So what are your thoughts on catcalling?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
And how did that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable.
So how do you think catcalling makes the person feel?
It feels good, like who's that cat sitting in the back corner with his face buried in his nose? Who's that kid that can use one?
Hey guys, this is Justin Holbrook in Charlotte down here, and what you guys need to do is check out Cam Newton's YouTube channel. He posted a video today, and it's called Cam Newton Game Day Unfiltered.
This was from last week.
About my feelings after losing the first two games. All right, so if you fast forward all the way to about 6 minutes and 30 seconds, Cam tells you right that he admits right there in his car while he's doing a selfie video that he didn't have any extra injuries in that game. The only thing that's wrong with him is that his shoulder is a little sore, and that's it. So take a look at it. Let me know what you think.
All right, so there's our first.
What's up, C3? This is Nova Black. I was calling in. It's Saturday, games day tomorrow, and everybody knows Cam Newton is out, which I'm glad he's out. Because when you really get down to it, when you look at, football as a whole, defenses are usually better than offense.
What's going on, guys?
Oh,
this
shoot.
is Shake and Bake.
That was my fault.
And just to say that Ron
Are these
Rivera
all calls?
mismanaged Cam.
Just the first two.
2 years in a row. Maybe Cam is wising up and figured, hey, if y'all not gonna save me, I'm gonna save myself, and gonna get some natural healing that he needs. And looking at the way that they're using Christian McCaffrey, CMC's next. They just don't know how to use the players and don't know how to protect them. And it's the time to get rid of Ron Rivera and the staff. Keep pounding. Love you guys, podcast.
All right, so look, let's just go through that quickly. Do you think there's been mismanagement with Cam?
100%.
Oh man, how would you think anything else at this point? Cam has been mismanaged since 2011. Cam has been nothing but mismanaged. I'm hoping that it's not the story of his entire career at this point, to be frank.
To be Lis Franc?
Yeah, to be Lis Franc. These coaches and general managers have been like Anne Frank. They can't see and they can't hear what's going on the field and their quarterback being torn to shreds. So
It's a complicated question when you ask if Cam's been mismanaged, because on one hand you're saying yes, he's been mismanaged with the personnel around him. That was the story of the first part of his career. In the second part of the career, there's questions about if they've handled the injury process, the timing of it, and the recovery, any of it good. And has Cam been at fault at any of this? And if you go back to the initial shoulder surgery, remember how late they had it that first year? Mm-hmm. And they should have, you're out of the playoffs at that, as soon as it happened, there was this, they were like, well, let's try to rehab it. And that is, some people try to go that route. I don't think Cam likes the knife. And true that. Yeah. All right, you're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast. Let's squeeze in 2 more calls before our guest Brandon Scott going to help preview the Houston Texans at half past.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Harrison. I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia. It was a hell of a win on Sunday against the Cardinals. That Kyle Allen kid didn't look like he was flustered one bit, and I don't think that there is a controversy with quarterback. I'm a Cam believer, but I think if this Kyle Allen kid goes out to Houston and does the same thing he did to Arizona, and he does that again, then I think you gotta think about it. Wait till Cam's healthy, but you'd have to keep giving him that hot hand and start him. I think it definitely opens up more of the deep ball and some of the longer throws. I think that he fits in Doer's offense better than Cam would. Also, I want to think, when we were up by 2 touchdowns with 10 minutes left, why we don't play the Jordan Scarlett kid. We drafted him 5th round. If he's not going to play, then what's the point of drafting him? I'd like to see McCaffrey get a little bit less of a workload.
That's a good point.
And see what that Scarlett kid can do. All right, guys, I appreciate it.
Yeah, good call. Great call, I think, and that's going to be the question we ask is, as we head into this Houston game, and Kyle Allen, how he performs will be a great deal. I think it will be very important for how Carolina feels that they need to treat the Cam Newton situation going forward. In some ways, if you can get Kyle Allen just rolling for a couple weeks, we can get through the bye and bring back Cam. There's a lot of people in the chat room saying that they would be heartbroken. Lynn saying she'd be heartbroken if this was the end for Cam. And I firmly believe it's not the end for Cam in Carolina. The question is when does he come back this season, if he comes back at this season at all? And if he can come back healthy after the bye and things are good and the team is starting to catch some momentum, let's do it. Yeah. But Cam cannot go down in Carolina like this. That would be the biggest shame in the history of our organization. And the only way Cam's leaving Carolina is with a Lombardi over his head.
I like it.
100%. And by the way, I just wanted to jump on what the caller said. Yeah, I mean, it's another tendency of, why aren't we playing Jordan Scarlett? Why aren't we playing Ian Thomas? Why did it take us so long to figure out how to use Curtis Samuel the right way? I mean, this is an ongoing thing with Ron Rivera, and it's been a part of my criticism of him. When you have talented young players, put them on the field. Sometimes you have to be willing to let them learn on the fly. And that's all right, man. Let them make their mistakes, but you have to put your young, talented draft picks on the field. And Ron Rivera is notorious for not doing that. Ask Cameron Artis-Payne. They'll tell you all about it.
That's true. Jay Zub in the chat says, would anybody be surprised in 2 weeks if 2 weeks from now we hear about Cam having surgery? And the answer is no. And I also want to know, is Jay Zub J-Dub, and did you get in trouble on YouTube if you are? All right. Now we're going to go on. We're going to go on to the third segment of the show right now. I think it's the third segment. I can't even keep up anymore. You're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast. We've got Brandon Scott from the Houston Overtime podcast to join us to help us understand this matchup going forward. Welcome to the show, Brandon.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot. And look, we're going to kind of do round robin and just pepper you with questions until you get tired and hang up on us. And and I will start right now. You're going to have a lot of love on this podcast because everybody, there's a lot of Clemson. There's a Clemson fan here. He loves your quarterback and stuff. And I love your receivers and things like that. But just tell us, man, Houston, it seems like the best team with the worst record. They're better. They're better. They should have beat the Saints, right? Didn't the Jags give them a hard time?
Yeah. So the thing to note about the Texan season so far is that every single game has come down to the wire.
Right.
Okay.
And so in theory, when a game comes down to the wire, that means it's a toss-up. Either team could win. And they've won 2 out of the 3 of those. Now, you look back at the Saints game, they picked it up there, and they had a chance to win that game when they barely lost by a 58-yard field goal, so they could easily be 3-0 right now. Now, if Leonard Fournette gets a better spot in week 2, or if we get a better look at that play, there are some people I can tell you for a fact in Houston that thought he may have actually crossed.
Right. And that was probably a poor way of phrasing it, but yeah, is that you look at teams around the league like a Buffalo that's 3-0. You look at some of the other guys that are that are obviously fool's gold. Is that Texans to me have been as so powerful of an offense at times that, or just the team seems to have been clicking. It's just some bad breaks, maybe some obviously a poor defensive call at the end, right? But your team is I think of when I think of the Texans, I'm thinking the teams that are at the top tier of the league. Even though they got that loss, they should have beat the Saints.
So I was just discussing this exact point with a friend of mine not too long ago, earlier today. The Texans, like after 3 weeks, where are we putting them in the tier of the AFC? Probably like right behind the Patriots, Chiefs. We're looking at them as the class of the AFC. And then, the Texans are somewhere around there with the Ravens, right? A team that you respect and think can make some noise, but they're not quite that elite team that you think is ready to make that step until you see it. Now, you mentioned the offense. The offense is impressive. Deshaun Watson is phenomenal. We're having a good time watching him. The addition of Laramie Tunsil on the offensive line and Kenny Stills as a wide receiver. Kenny Stills has made quite a few plays for this team already. So the offense looks a lot different than it did last year, and a lot of us are still getting used to it and still trying to figure out what to make of it, particularly on the offensive line. One thing to note there is that they've had a different line in every single game this year. The offensive line has made changes. And we believe that this game against the Panthers is actually going to be the first time where they have the same offensive line that they had the previous week. So there should be some level of continuity there, especially since they had some success last week against the Chargers. But there are some holes in the offense, some things to nitpick, particularly the offensive line, and just the fact that a lot of these guys are new. They just traded for a lot of these guys or signed them. Yeah. Within days of the opener, within days of starting the season. So I mean, it's just something to look out for. But I would put them right there in that second tier of the AFC teams, right? Like they're somewhere with the Colts in their own division. Like I don't think we know at this point if the Texans are better than the Colts. They certainly weren't last year. We know that for a fact. So we'll kind of have to see. Like I think they are, but I've seen this movie before.
Definitely. Brandon, I'm Cody. Wanted to introduce myself to you, but I write for DraftTech.com. I'm the analyst for the Panthers, and just recently I picked up the Houston Texans. So I write for them as well, and I write about draft picks. So before I talk to you about this season, I want to ask you this, man. Was Laramie Tunsil worth the next 2 years of first-round draft picks for the Houston Texans? That is a steep price, brother.
So I agree with you that is a steep price, and I think there are. You asked a specific question. I think there are 2 questions here. I think generally you can ask, is Laramie Tunsil worth the haul? The 2 first-round picks in the second. Is Laramie Tunsil in a vacuum worth the haul. And I think
and stills, I guess, if you want to throw that in there as
well. And you know what? I think going back to my earlier comment, that's not a throwaway there. He has
he's played well.
Hey, you know, if you look on Twitter, guys have actually joked around. It's like, man, we're really glad that we got Tunsil in the Kenny Stills trade. That's kind of been a joke, like in Texas Twitter. But back to your question, is he worth the haul in a vacuum? No, he's not. Is he worth the haul to the Texans, given their situation? Like, if you know, and matter of fact, you guys should actually be able to identify.
I can't wait to make fun of this. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, with having a bad left tackle or not knowing who the left tackle is, or if you can rely on the guy or whatever the situation is, the Texans were in that exact situation. And so, yeah, it's a steep price. No, it's not worth it. Like, if you look at it bigger picture, no, it's not worth it. But in the moment, and when you're looking at, hey, we got Deshaun Watson, we got a team that could contend, that can compete, that can at least be interesting. And Deshaun Watson, if he is a long-term solution for you, or your long-term quarterback, then you have to invest in protecting him, and sometimes you might have to overpay for it.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? And Cody, you might even be the one that you want to answer. My thoughts on that have to do with what happens if you didn't make that trade to this season. What is this season worth to you? Because we know what Matt Khalil will do. He will get your quarterback killed. And the only reason that we didn't lead with making jokes about Matt Khalil is we've had to watch freaking Darrell Williams play left tackle for us for the last 2 weeks, who has been equally as bad. I never thought I would see anyone as bad as Matt Khalil, and he was worse. So I think that whole trade was a bet on this season, or at least not throw away this season.
Yeah, and I think that they just, Matt Khalil was one of, I guess, a number of misses that this team has had on the offensive line. Really, right before Deshaun Watson even got here, before he was even drafted, and they've been trying to figure it out for the last 2-3 years. And so what was it going to look like? I mean, it was going to look terrible. Like, honestly, they haven't been great with Tunsil because they've had 2 rookies in there as well. Their first round pick is Titus Howard, who was drafted as a left. That was supposed to be another solution at left tackle, but it's like, oh, I don't know if he's ready. We're going to put him at guard. And then, later on, the last game, they put him at right tackle. So, like, they've done musical chairs on the offensive line with everybody except Tunsil, basically.
Yeah.
And so that should give you a sense for what the offensive line is look like. Nobody holds their position, I guess, except Nick Martin at center. But nobody really holds their position there, and they like that. Just to be clear, I don't know if it's fair enough to say that that's a criticism. They like that strategy of having what they call versatile guys, or guys who can play multiple positions on the offensive line. But as I told you before, it's the 3 straight weeks, 3 straight different offensive lines, and they've been like pretty good. So without Tunsil, I don't know. I honestly don't want to know.
Yeah.
So, hey, Brandon, what's up, man? My name's Greg. It's nice to meet you.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah. Hey, so just touching on some of the stuff you guys said, I agree with you completely on your tiers of the Texans. I don't think they're anywhere near the Kansas City or New England, but honestly, I don't think really anybody in the NFL is near that level right now. But they're right underneath it. I think they have what it takes to win it all right now. I don't know if they will this year, but they're a good building team in the future, and I really enjoy watching them. We definitely know what it's like to have to change up offensive line. We can agree on that. But my question to you is, I don't know if you saw our game last week, but we have a pretty decent defense, and I think we've got a great front seven, and they're starting to mesh together really well. We had 8 sacks last week, and I know that a big problem you guys have is your offensive line and keeping Deshaun Watson from getting sacked, which kind of sucks because it's kind of the same song and dance we heard with Cam Newton. Are you worried about next week with our defensive line, your offensive line, of what it could mean for the game? Do you think that'll be something that completely changes the game around?
I would have been worried more last week than I am now after seeing how and honestly, I'm not gonna give you a hot take on whose defense is better between the Chargers and the Panthers. I would probably say that the Panthers are, if I had to think of some of the numbers that I've looked at, are probably ranked better. defensively. But after seeing them against a formidable pass rush in Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa with the Chargers, and this being, like I said, a whole nother new line, and seeing them being able to perform against them, or at least hold their own, I feel better about that going against y'all's guys. Now, there's still some concerns there, and that's still, I think, up front is where the matchups are most interesting. You could argue that about any game.
What did you see in that game? What did you see in that game that that was different than the first 2 weeks?
Well, for one thing, I think that Titus Howard is better at right guard than what they had before in Chantrell Henderson. So, and that, honestly, Laramie Tunsil looked a little bit better, even though he suffered a bit of an ankle injury. And they're just a little bit more in sync. They handled the blitz better. And that was something that was really bad. I wouldn't say terrible, but they weren't good at it. It wasn't just the offensive line, too. Deshaun Watson holds on to the ball too long. That's a major criticism of him, and probably takes too many chances, but that's also the thing that makes him great. So between the running backs, the offensive line, and Deshaun getting rid of the ball, for the most part, Deshaun still holds the ball too long. But overall, as an offense, I saw them handle the blitz better. And so I feel good about that, at least. They seem to be gelling a little bit and seem to be a little bit more familiar with what it is that they're supposed to be doing, what their assignments are. Now, does that mean y'all's guys can come up there and still wreak some havoc? I think that's fair. I think that is a fair matchup to look at and say, okay, mano y mano, who's going to win that one?
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely right. Taking a little bit of time to gel together is always the biggest part about an offensive line. Same with kind of a defensive line. Now, I want to touch real quick on what y'all were talking about earlier about the trade for Tunsil and Stills being worth what they gave up. If you ask me, and I don't follow the Texans really, really closely. I just enjoy watching them. They're a great team to watch. I think personally it was worth it because the only thing I see you guys need to fix on your team is your offensive line. And you got a good player to replace that. And you can do a lot through trading next year, developing players you have. I don't think y'all need a lot of high offensive picks or, high picks for next year. I think y'all are right there at the cusp of being a Super Bowl contender. So for me personally, I think that trade was worth it. You don't have a lot to do on the offensive line. If they gel together, I think y'all are right there. Did you kind of look at it that way, or do you?
I agree with that, and I'll reiterate the point about Kenny Stills as well. Like he's just been such a great find in that trade. He was at the time of throw-in because the urgency for the trade. The reason why they wanted to do it is because they needed to address the issue at left tackle.
Right.
And Kenny Stills was kind of a throw-in. There's some non-football things that are going on with Kenny Stills in Miami as well that kind of
him and the coach, like he made him listen to Jay-Z for 12 hours straight or something.
Yeah, right. And like what the hell kind of mind game was that anyway? Like that was
you got to be tough.
One of the silliest things that I've heard in the entire offseason. Like, oh, you know what I'm gonna do to make you nervous? I'm gonna play Jay-Z to like a black guy in his late 20s, early 30s.
Well, it's because they don't like it because he called out Jay-Z for being a sellout for the money.
Yeah, right, but that's fine and all, and there's possibly something to that and discussion to be had about that. But that doesn't mean Kenny Stills is like going to get nervous listening to Jay-Z. Like
I know he's been listening to him the last 20 years.
Exactly, as most of us have been. I mean, it was absurd. You know what I'm gonna do to get to you? I'm gonna play some Jay-Z, some of the most popular music that exists in your era.
Take that.
Right, exactly.
Make you eat steak. You want that?
Right, but back on the team though. So with the draft, I wanted to point out, or not the draft picks that were included in the trade. So we talked to people with the team recently, or I guess not too long after the trade, and the sense that I got from them, we're having this discussion about was it worth it, and all of that kind of stuff. Well, to them, I can tell you that they look at the draft, this year's draft, the one that they just participated in and have players on the field right now from, next year's draft, and the draft after that. They don't seem to have the most confidence in. Like their scouting department, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a scout, but the information that they're getting has them valuing players in the league now over these draft picks that we in media and as analysts value a lot more because we're thinking, we're not necessarily just thinking about the short play. We're thinking about the long play. They seem to be thinking about right now. We've got Deshaun Watson right now. They say Andrew Luck's retirement didn't factor in any of the moves that they made, but it's got to be in the back of your mind of how much you can have a guy be banged up. Can a guy get sacked 60 times a year and still want to play for you?
Right.
So how long do you have this moment where for years, and Bill O'Brien is the one that can speak to this the most because he went so many years with no quarterback. I mean, this is a team that's been wanting a quarterback or needing a quarterback for years, and they finally got him.
And now you got to keep him upright.
At this point.
You got to keep him upright. I think too. Just to remind us, wasn't there some weird stuff that happened with the front office, like just right around the draft time and things? So it's not like there's been this like giant plan of how to proceed in the future. And other point on the Kenny Stills thing is, as a giant Will Fuller fan here, you know that the guy is going to miss time, and you need somebody at some point in case he goes down. So DeAndre Hopkins doesn't have to do everything.
Well, so since you bring up Will Fuller, there have been people that throw around the idea that the question is Kenny Stills the number 2 receiver on the team now?
Oh, shush.
Right. Well, yeah, and I said that to get a rise out of you because you just said you're
yeah. I know they'll say it. Of course they say it.
But that's a good point. Not just Will Fuller, but Kiki QT is a player that you got. I don't know how familiar y'all are with Kiki QT.
Yeah, I know.
He's a slot receiver who hasn't been able to stay on the field. He's been injured basically since he got drafted last year. And so the thought was that Kenny Stills could come in and take a lot of his spots, but Kenny Stills is able to play in the slide. He can run deep routes. He's able to do so many different things where you have both of those guys in Fuller and QT who you worry about with health, and Stills is so far seems to be reliable.
Right. So I wanted to ask you this, Brandon. It's about your quarterback, Deshaun Watson. And so, by the way, I don't know if you noticed that banner behind my head. That's a Clemson National Championship banner. You ain't got to tell me about Deshaun Watson, man. I know the young man is special. DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver in the NFL, and I think that's a potent duo. My question is this. Do you worry? So I noticed that Deshaun has the same tendency that Newton has, where if he has the ability to extend the play, he's going to do it. The problem is he's not built like Cam Newton. Do you worry that Deshaun Watson takes too many risks that puts his body in danger and that could potentially harm him going forward into the season?
Yes. Yes is the short answer. And just to expand on it, it's something that is discussed throughout almost every week because there's something that he does. He'll make a play that is spectacular and everybody's amazed by it, but he might make another play that's not that great and where he gets banged up.
Yeah.
Or he's holding the ball and when he should be getting rid of it and sort of ending the play, right? When you're holding the ball, you're still a target. You throw the ball away, they're going to slow down. They're probably not going to try to hit you, right? He's holding on to the ball when the play is not developing. If you go back to the first week against New Orleans in the Monday Night Football game, he makes this really cool play, but lands square on his backside, and he's got a bruised butt for the next few weeks. And he's able to play through it. He was able to play through the lung or rib injury or whatever it was that had him riding the bus to Jacksonville. So it's not like he's not a tough guy. I believe in like his toughness and like his willingness to play through injury. But to your point of whether he's taking too many shots and taking too many risks, I can tell you for a fact that that's something that they discuss with him internally, and something that he has to be more mindful of as well. Even though there is a balance there with not wanting to take away from what he does and what it is that makes him so special.
Right.
You don't want to mess with that. Because if you at that point, then you might as well just bring Brian Hoyer back. If you don't want a guy who's dynamic, and so you want him to be that, but you want him to be smart as well.
Right. And real quick, and then I'll let my other guys jump in here. Have you been impressed with Tytus Howard and Max Sharping?
So we got our first look at Max last week, and he was good. He did fine. I thought. I thought he was good. Hadn't seen him besides training camp, and I'm not a good evaluator of training camp ball and how they. I mean, so this is his first like real game, and I thought he was good. Titus Howard is not. It's still a project. It's still a work, or I should say, not a project. He's out there playing. He's a work in progress, but he's made some good plays. I think that the biggest thing with Titus Howard that you like is that he's physically there. He seems to be physically there, but there are just like some small things that he's got to that he's probably got to work on. Just being a rookie, Right. But yeah, I actually have been, especially given that he's played left guard. Well, he didn't play the first game, but he played left guard in one game and then went over to right tackle in the next game. And to make that adjustment, I got to talk to him the other day too, and he just seems to have his head on and everything. So yeah, I'm good with both of the rookie linemen.
Cool.
So CK here.
What up, man?
I live in the dream, man. Sorry, guys. For whatever reason, it's not letting me type in that I want to go next, so I don't know what's going on there. But what I was going to ask about is, kind of transitioning to the Panthers. I mean, you've had a couple of days now to really focus on us. I know being an NFC team, we're not really at the top of your priority list of knowing what's going on in the league. But now that you've had a couple of days to kind of do a scouting report on us, what do you feel is going to be the key to the game for you, either winning or the Panthers winning for Sunday?
So I'll tell you this, like the matchup that I'm most looking forward to, we've kind of already hit on, and that's your left tackle. So our pass rush has improved from the beginning of the season, I feel like. There's strategic things that they've done, and they've also played better. But given what J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless, DJ Reader, Charles Omenihu, the rookie out of Texas, like we've got some pass rushers, and so I'm interested to see how they might exploit that left side, how that might go, and of course with the rookie, well, not the rookie, but the young, inexperienced Kyle Allen out there, I'm interested to see what that matchup looks like, and I think if they can exploit that. They did well against Gardner Minshew, even though he was able to have a late drive that almost won them the game. We talked about that earlier. But I'm honestly most interested in how the Texans defensive front goes up against if they can win that matchup against Carolina's offensive front, and if they can exploit the youth, the inexperience of Kyle Allen. That for me is the biggest thing. Now, you guys brought up earlier something that I hadn't thought as much about, but is definitely worth mentioning. Y'all's defense is not for. Look, I don't have a lot of affinity for y'all's offense. Cam, I don't know what's going on with Cam Newton. Kyle Allen, I'm familiar with him from his college days, and I just don't necessarily see that being like the greatest solution for you guys, even though he does have some talent. And it's like Christian McCaffrey and Olsen or bust. I don't see much from the offense.
Oh, you ain't heard about Christian McCaffrey then. You just wait. He's going to be by the end of the season.
I just said Christian McCaffrey or bust. That was
we thought you said Christian McCaffrey's a bust.
It's Christian McCaffrey. I feel like that is the offense.
Yeah,
right. And
a lot of unproven.
I feel like there's not much more to it than that.
Without Cam, we are not a team that strikes fear into anyone's heart, except for, I tell you, the thing that we're optimistic about is that Cam has been such a shell of himself this season to start, and we're all debating of why that is, and injuries, what else is going, all this stuff. Is that when Kyle Allen came in, it was a breath of fresh air to the offense, and some of the speed guys could do what they're trying to do. There are some weapons there, but except for the problem is that the weapon, it's kind of like the Texans offense without Watson. Is that it's just not it can't ever be what it's supposed to be without Cam Newton. But but the thing is we might be able to just do just enough till Christian McCaffrey comes back. I think what you really need and what we're excited, I think, about we have a new defense. Our new defense, we shifted to a 3-4 in the past season. We got Brian Burns high in the draft. He has been sensational to start. We have not been lights out as a defense, but we're seeing signs of young guys playing well where we could start to really bring it together, well, whether we do or not. So we're looking at Houston as the litmus test for the Carolina Panthers. Is Kyle Allen a one-hit wonder for 1 week against the worst defense in the league almost, or is he just enough that we can support until Cam gets back and the defense starting to gel together? This is our litmus test, guys.
Yeah. So real quick on a point about Kyle Allen and the weapons kind of, I guess, having an opportunity now, since at least you have a quarterback in there who's healthy. I will say that the weak part of the Texans defense is the secondary. They've got good safeties, but Bradley Roby's been pretty good for them at cornerback. The mainstay, Jonathan Joseph, is the one who Phillip Rivers picked on in this past game. And I wouldn't be surprised to see something similar happen with Kyle Allen, with you guys. I mean, I could see the same thing happening, and so there are some situations where I could see both Carolina's offense having some success against the second throwing the ball,
right?
Especially with Cam not being out there and not being erratic and not being injured, playing injured. Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, I would just co-sign your point about the defense. I've also been impressed with the defense, and I'm interested to see how they match up.
How has life been without the honey badger?
You know what is funny? Like the honey badger, he's a good player, right? But he was more loud than good, honestly, when he was here. And I say that honestly with all due respect. I was a huge fan of him at LSU. And I like that the Texans picked him up. I liked what he did here. But man, that dude went to go get paid, man. Kansas City paid, they ponied up. And I would have been upset if the Texans paid that money to the Honey Badger with Clowney still unsigned or franchise.
Oh, we didn't even ask about Clowney.
We can get there. We can get there.
I had a question about him.
And we can get there. But I will say, just on the Honey Badger, his replacement has been Deshaun Gibson, who played in Jacksonville last year, and so far so good. He made a big play at the end of the game on the ball, at the end of the fourth quarter, and I just think that he's a good player. So I like their replacement for the Honey Badger, and good for him on getting his money. I'm glad the Texans didn't give it to him.
So CK again, what I was looking at. So Deshaun Watson, right? I think we're so hungry for that next great quarterback that they crowned him really early in his first, like when he started before he had his ACL, as being, that next quarterback, right? And then you have the ACL. He comes back. He has a decent season, but it wasn't to the same level that they were expecting. And then, we come in this season, we see a great start within the Saints, and then a Jaguars output that didn't exactly provide a lot of confidence. And then now we had a really great outing again against the Chargers. It reminds me a lot of Cam Newton and the fact that the inconsistency is there. When you compare the two, what do you feel like your fan base is split down the middle on Deshaun Watson the way that Cam Newton has this fan base split down the middle as well?
Yeah, so the difference between the two, if we're going to compare them, is like how one is more polarizing than the other. And I know we're talking football here, but if you allow me to kind of go outside just a little bit,
of course.
Cam's got personality. He's got all these things tied to him. Big college career as well, right? But there was way more controversy tied to that than it was to anything that Deshaun Watson has no controversy. Like he is like he's like the perfect neighbor, like the guy you want your daughter to date. Like he's like a really, really good guy, like in the public face. So I think that there's some of that going on too, where Cam was very I guess I wouldn't say loud, but I remember when he was drafted, right before the draft, he said, he wanted to be an icon, or he wanted to be like Muhammad. I forget exactly what the quote was, but you guys I'm sure can remember that.
That's what he said.
He was making it very clear that he wanted to be something big, not just
a quarterback,
a quarterback, but like an entity of sorts. Whereas Deshaun may have some of that, but it's not like he's doing it outwardly, or it's like this big, huge expression. So there's some difference there in personality and how guys are perceived and received by the fan base. Now, on the football side of it, I think that there are some similarities in terms of the risks that they take. Now, Cam's a bigger guy. He can afford to take those risks. And in fact, it's always been, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but it's always been a part of the Panthers strategy for him to run and to put his body out on the line. Mm-hmm. Like they weren't, I don't feel like having those same conversations with Cam that the Texans are having with Deshaun about being smart and picking your spots and, doing this cost benefit analysis of when you take these risks. So there is that difference, but as far as how the fans look at him, the fans complain about him holding the ball too long. He does hold the ball too long. The fans complain about him not always picking up the blitz, doing his part in picking up blitzes. That is a problem. Now, there are some people who are irrational that think, get rid of Deshaun and get a whole nother guy. Those people that we don't give much time and attention to. Right. But for the most part, I think that there is something to that people look at Deshaun Watson and wonder, is this guy really, is he elite, or is he just very, very good, or like really good, and it makes it look amazing?
All right, I want to follow up. How good is he? I want to follow up on this, because what's interesting is one of the things is the factors is the dearth of quarterbacks there, and never having a quarterback creates a reception for a quarterback who shows any glimpses that he could be a real deal QB, like badass QB. You guys are hungry for that, and you want it so much. I don't know why the Carolina Panther fans weren't like that more. Is that there has always just been this strange entity of people that believe that Cam Newton couldn't succeed. Now, I think with Watson, I don't think that exists, and I think that people have tended to view him. He's had so much more success throwing the ball early in his career, and he's been making some hero. I mean, his throws are crazy awesome. I don't think we look at him as a running quarterback. I think we look at him as a quarterback who has elite athletic skill set, but wants to be a pocket passer. Houston has always had the narrative, though, that they couldn't protect anybody. And for some reason, Cam has been different. Cam has been a player that didn't need protection. We didn't have to give it to him. We didn't want to give it to him. It's strange. We're paying for it now. And on top of that, people didn't think he could be an elite quarterback. They looked at him like an athlete, other than us who are just fanboys of him. There is this. So I don't think that there is that. They're on to something about how Cam is polarizing, and certain people are. It doesn't matter if it's not that, even though being a black quarterback has a lot to do with it, we firmly believe that, but it's just sometimes the person and their personality, because you're looking at Watson, unless people have come more accustomed to guys that play a little bit more and look more like Cam in the last 7 years because of Cam, then maybe Watson's inherited that a little bit.
I think that there is something to that, but I mean, all of that stuff is still there. I don't know if you guys remember or if you saw this story last year, I believe it was, but there was a school superintendent, a superintendent at a public school district in Southeast Texas.
Yeah. I do remember
this. I can't even remember exactly what game it was, but Deshaun didn't have his best game. Let's just suffice it to say that Deshaun didn't have his best game, and the superintendent of the school district goes out and says, you can't win with a black quarterback. And I keep stressing that he's the superintendent of the school district to point out that he's not a bot. He's not some some anonymous guy living on.
And he's
internet.
supposed to be a guy that should be somewhat educated, obviously, because you are the superintendent of a school system. On top of that, too, is that what this reminds me of is that I remember that North Carolina is the South, but it turns out Texas still the South too.
Like, do you think being in Texas, being further south, there's a stigma of more racism as far as that goes? Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, so like you got to think of Texas. We have these big cities, right? We've got Houston, Dallas, Austin's, not that big of a city, but it's a fairly nice sized city, and it's the capital. San Antonio. We've got these cities, but Texas is mostly like country, backwoods, rural. I mean, that's what these cities are largely made of. That and transplants from other, from totally different states. Right. But these cities are actually made of these folks that started off, or their family started. I'm even one of them, whose family started off in these rural areas and made it to the city. So yeah, man, there's a lot of that. People think of Texas and think of those big cities, man. But the reason why it's so damn big is because you got all of these little towns. There are a lot more counties than you can even than you could probably even consider.
Right.
Backwater rednecks, man. You can say it.
Yeah, man. I mean, it is what it is.
Hey, man,
they ain't got no water in Texas, though, so you can't call it backwater rednecks. They're just back sand redneck.
However you refer to them. Brandon, listen, man, you have been incredible on our show tonight, man. You've handled the rapid fire of all of our questions perfect, man. I just kind of want to get my final question to you is, where are you most confident going into the game, and what keeps you up at night? What do you fear might be the Texans' undoing, and what do you do to win the football game? If you win, what do you do well? So both sides, what are you afraid of, and what are you confident about going into the matchup?
So I'm actually most confident for all that we talked about in with Deshaun and his ups and downs. Every game, I could say, like, my answer to that specific question would be the same: is Deshaun.
Yeah,
Deshaun Watson and his ability to make plays. Whether it's and just real quick, the Texans have won differently, or have been successful in different ways. There have been games where Carlos Hyde, who we haven't talked about, but has been also another pleasant surprise for the Texans, another great pickup. Their running game was not there against the Chargers, and Deshaun and the offense in this, once the second half came, were able to pick it up. And so I believe in, like, just Deshaun as a leader. I do think that there's something to maybe overhyping him a little bit after that season.
Saints game. Shoot, after the Saints game, you're looking at that and you're going, dude, this guy is like Mahomes.
He dropped to win that game. He dropped to win that game in the Saints game.
He did that by himself. Like, he willed that victory at the end.
Well, and then there was some of that last week. I mean, in avoiding pressure and finding the tight end, like the tight ends got involved. I'm like, I forgot we had tight ends that could, because that wasn't a thing before just last week. And so Deshaun is the short answer to the thing that I'm most confident in. The thing that I'm worried about is the coverage, man. If you listen to radio in Houston, one of the big calls that you'll get is, why is Jonathan Joseph playing 25 yards off of his man? Like, why won't he press his man a little bit? And like, that is like a scare for us, I think, because because the front is so good. The front is good, is actually good enough to bail them out. But in the situations where they're not, like, we're worried about Jonathan Joseph and just how good is the coverage. How good are we in coverage? And there are some holes there. That is what keeps me up at night. Now, I take some comfort in how good the pass rush is, and so I just kind of take the good with the bad there.
Okay. Well, real quick, I'm going to kind of change lanes a little bit, because one thing we haven't talked about, you kind of brought up before, is the running back acquisitions you guys have this year. The way I look at it, I've had Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson on my fantasy team this year at one point in time, but either traded them or dropped them for whatever reason. because for me, it's kind of a dual threat back, and you don't know which one to play. I see kind of like a Sony Michel, James White type deal they have going here, where you've got one who's in for more of a pass protection, receiving type core, and the other one who's a bruiser. Now we had a combo running back with D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart, but they were both kind of bruisers. So, what do you think? Do you like the combination? Would you rather see a dominant one, or do you like kind of having both of them and giving a kind of variety of what's coming next?
I'm good with whichever way works. To be honest with you, I don't have a preference on the style. Like, I'm pragmatic, so whichever thing works, I'll go with. But to the point that you're making, though, it's interesting because we didn't know who was going to be the number one back after they brought these guys in. Lamar Miller had gone down in the preseason, and then they brought these guys in. We weren't sure, and that's been sort of a thing to what, like, who gets the most carries, who seems like they're going to be that number one back. And so far for us, it does seem like it's Carlos Hyde, or at least for me. I'll tell you, the Texans, the team would tell you that they're doing this Sony Michel, this 1-2 back, this thing that you mentioned, that's kind of the attitude, or that the matchup, the defense itself that they're facing would dictate which running back is going to eat that week, whether it's going to be Duke Johnson or Carlos Hyde. So far, I've been more impressed with Carlos Hyde as a bruiser and as somebody who's been shiftier than I thought he would be. Duke Johnson's been good as well. But if you're asking me, though, what I think the dynamic is going to be, I think that ultimately Carlos Hyde is going to be your every down back, and Duke Johnson's going to be in there for special situations.
Change of pace. Okay.
Yeah, change of pace, right.
Okay.
All right. My last question tonight, and then we'll get you out of here. Thank you so much for being so gracious with your time.
Man, it's been fun, man. I appreciate y'all for having me.
Man, no problem, man. We're going to have you back, definitely. My question is, where do you see for the Texans in the division and in the conference this year going forward? I don't know what to think of the Colts. I've been stubborn in not wanting to believe that they could be any good, and I've picked against them each week, and I've paid for it. I feel like every week. This is not a toss away division this year. Jacksonville with a crazy awesome defense, and then the Colts with a good start and better than we expected. What are your expectations within the division and the conference this year?
Yeah, so I have calmed down a little bit on the immediate reaction to Andrew Luck's retirement for Texans fans and for Texans optimists is, okay, they're the clear-cut favorite. I want to say that was just a fact, actually. Maybe even Vegas. It might have even been a fact in Vegas and everywhere else. So the Texans are the clear-cut favorite once that happens. I started to look around, and I'm kind of like you. I'm like, you know what? But Texans have lost to Jacoby Brissett before. Like, I've seen that happen. I can't discount that. I don't believe in the Titans, but as you mentioned with the Jags, Nick Foles, I didn't know what to make of Nick Foles as a starter because we'd seen that before.
Yep.
Away from Philly. But then he gets hurt, and Gardner Minshew, who I will admit, I liked Gardner Minshew. I didn't think he was going to come out. I'm not saying I predicted this or any of that, but I like Gardner Minshew coming out of Washington State. I think he should have been drafted higher. So I was actually excited when he went in there.
And how can you not like a guy with that swag, dude? That drip, that sauce, it's legit.
Hey, look, I've got facial hair, but my mustache will never be as mean as that. And I just have to come to terms with it. And yeah, man, you got to respect the drip as well.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
So I appreciated that. But man, look, for me, I'm trying to remember
the division. How you feel about division and conference?
The division for me, the Texans are still the class of the division, but it's out of the Texans and the Colts. Like, yeah. I don't really know what to make of Jacksonville's their in-house situation with the Jalen Ramsey thing. I have been impressed with Leonard Fournette and Gardner Minshew, and their defense is impressive. I just don't see it. The Texans have looked the best, particularly because they have the best quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think that beyond that, that you could argue back and forth who has the better roster between the Colts, like the overall roster between the Colts and the Texans. I would say the Texans. You got some people that would say the Colts.
I think you got to say the Texans because it always comes down to who's got in our eyes who really has the better quarterback if everything else is a wash. And it sounds like you're on the right in the same thing that I'm thinking about with the Texans, and that is if you don't win your division this year, it's a squandered opportunity because you can't really count on anything but just trying to get into the playoffs and hoping that you catch Kansas City or New England on the down week or a tough week because there's some good teams. Baltimore is nothing that I think they're legit. I think those are the 4 teams that right there I'm saying are winning or going to the playoffs, and it's going to be a tough road for all of them. In fact, the guys from the NFC might be happy that they just beat the living tar out of each other, and in the Super Bowl, hopefully you just catch a wounded warrior.
Yeah, so you know what? I should have answered the question this way. Like the Texan season really comes down. A lot of this is about Bill O'Brien. Talk about there not being a general manager. The head coach Bill O'Brien has one playoff win, and that was against a Connor Cook-led Raiders team.
Oh, the Raiders! Y'all lost to the Bengals, didn't you?
That was 2015, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I want to say we beat the Bengals. We beat the Bengals in back-to-back years. That was 2012.
Okay.
2013.
It's been so long.
But the point is they go like last year. You got the embarrassment at home to a division foe who had been the wild card team, right?
Yeah.
To the Colts, and back to the point of like what keeps you up at night. The Colts keep you like. I know that wasn't the question, and we were talking about the Panthers game, but as a Texans fan, it's the Colts that keeps you up at night. But you go before that, the Brian Hoyer year when they got embarrassed by, I believe it was Kansas City. I mean, whenever it's been time to like seize the moment, they've never done it. So like whether you win the division, whether you're able to squeak out a wild card, whatever it is, you just got to show up in the big game. You got to show up in the moment because that's what they haven't done. That's why people were so excited about them beating the Chargers, which really is kind of a benign victory. But you look at them as a team that won 12 games last year, and they have an actual quarterback. Bill O'Brien has not been good against quarterbacks who we think are going to go to the Hall of Fame at some point. And so that's really where we are right now. Like whether you win a division, where you're able to get the wild card, which you're probably not, given how things are going to slug out at the end, you got to win that big game at the end. And that's something that they just have not been able to do at any point in franchise history.
Well, the good news for the Panthers is maybe the win against the Chargers is slightly fool's gold because Phillip Rivers always throws a fourth quarter pick to lose the game. He's the Hall of Fame quarterback who always throws the ball, and he never gets criticized for it. Yeah. He never gets criticized. He makes the worst decisions. Like, I mean, it is, and it's always at the end, and it always means a lot. And so, well, all right, man. Brandon, you've been fantastic tonight. Tell us about where our fans can find you on social media as well as check out your podcast.
Yeah, so Houston Overtime is available on basically anywhere where you can get podcasts. Apple, Spotify, you name it. You can Google Play. You can find. You should be able to find Houston Overtime. I'm at Brandon K. Scott on Twitter. I'm actually also working in radio and sports radio in Houston around the Texans, and so just check me out at Brandon K. Scott, and you'll be able to find me musing about the games and in between, and definitely on the podcast, which drops every Monday.
Which, in fact, if you got nothing to do after the game, we always do a post-game show. You're more than welcome to join us if you have time. If not, man, we will definitely catch up with you on social media. Follow the Houston Overtime podcast. Should be called the Texan Overtime. I told you, drop the S, and then say, ha! They gave him shit about his former name.
So, offline, I'll tell you what the other idea was that was actually similar to that.
All right, man. Thanks a lot, guys. You guys go follow Brandon Scott and the Houston Overtime Podcast, part of the Overtime Media Network, which we are also part of. All right, guys, we got to move on. We've got still a ton of calls to get through, the betting segment, the picks to go through. Let's jump back, guys. All right, so listen, before we get into that, remember, folks, we are trying to build a community here for Panther fans. So continue to participate in the chat room. There's been a lot of great conversation in there tonight, as well as call into the Cat Calls line. The number is 252-228-5098. And don't forget to smash the thumbs up button and tell a friend about the show. You can find us, like Brandon said, on every major audio podcast outlet there is, and we appreciate all the listeners as well. And so to show that, let's get back into the cat calls and see what these cats got to say.
Hey guys, I didn't realize how much time I had on these. Still Harrison from Atlanta, Georgia. I just want to talk about how well the defense played and the opponent that we are going to face as in the Texans. I think that with our defense, I think our defense has to have all the confidence in the world. Even though, I mean, the Cardinals are nothing special, but the Texans O-line is one of the worst in the league. I think that our D can capitalize against them and give Deshaun not too much time to throw the ball. I also know that the Texans, their cornerbacks, they have one of the worst secondaries. So I think it's a good matchup that we can win, and I'm not saying it's a must-win game, but it would.
It's a must-win game.
Kyle Allen comes out here and does another 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, he would. Then you would have to start him for the Jaguars game. No question about it. I think even Cam would want that for his teammates. I know all the stuff he does and for the youth in Atlanta where I live, and I think he'd be excited for all his teammates to get back in the winning column and get their mojo going. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, so one fantastic call. Thanks for the call. I mean, I do agree with the caller. I feel there's areas of this matchup where we're going to have some favorable matchups that go in our advantage. And I think Brandon even mentioned them. This backfield for the Houston Texans, it's not the best defensive backfield in the NFL. And I feel Kyle Allen showed what the potential of this offense is, and we talked about it all offseason. I mean, that's a lot of talented players that you have to cover. You have to cover Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, Greg Olsen. I mean, they don't quite have the personnel to match up with that. Now, they definitely have the defensive line to match up with our offensive line, and that's what gives me nightmares. But, I mean, that's my main concern for the match. But if we're able to provide some pass protections, I feel that it's a winnable ball game. Greg, how about you? What do you feel, man?
Well, touching on what you said, I agree with you that our offensive line is vulnerable right here compared to their defensive line. But I think when you compare the two, our defensive line versus their offensive line, and our offensive line versus their defensive line, I think we have the advantage there. Just personally, but right. You know,
if we don't start Darrell Williams, we have to start Greg Little. We have to start Greg Little.
I agree. I just want to say though, like getting out there about Kyle Allen, like people forget, or no matter forget, they don't know, he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. You know, he was the number 7 overall ranked player the year he was coming into college. This guy has put it out there before and is a good quarterback. Now, people talk about how he played in preseason and everything, but let's look at his regular season games. He's not a bad quarterback. You know, years ago we boasted about having the best backup quarterback in the league with what was his name?
DA.
The guy that ended up,
DA.
Yeah.
Derek Anderson. I don't like the man.
Derek Anderson, exactly. And we never got to see it, very much of it. And when we did get to see it, he really didn't do that well. I think that we've got enough here to get us through the season if Cam needs surgery, and I think that Cam should take the surgery if he goes, but it's a little away from the question you asked me. But no, I think that we have the same kind of problems they have this year or right now in this game as far as O-line versus D-line. I think that's the biggest thing key for this game because we maybe can't match up with wide receiver talent they can, but we have past their top one. I think we're over everything else they've got.
CK, what do you feel about this matchup? Do you feel that we have a chance to pull this off? And if so, what does that mean? What do we have to do well in order to pull this off?
I think we got to get better at our run defense because, I mean, if we can't,
Good point.
If we can't stop, their run, I mean, how are we going to stop the pass? I mean, because if we have to focus so much, if we have to load the box and not dedicate as many people to the secondary, I mean, they have some burners, and we need to be able to make sure we don't have the situation where we had two opportunities that happened to just be luckily dropped. Christian Kirk one that was all the way down the field that Trey Boston broke up, and then the other one that was a complete blown coverage by Dante Jackson.
Yes,
that was dropped. I mean, those aren't going to happen against the Texans. Those are not going to happen, and so you cannot let those blown assignments happen because those are going to be house calls.
Yeah, and we cannot afford to make giant mistakes on defense with – see, if anything, is that Kyle Allen was impressive in that. We'd like to see how he can do in 2 weeks. Can he stay healthy too? Because, last year he got blown up really quickly. But you're talking about an opportunity here to where your defense, if they can win that matchup against the offensive line, you have an honest shot with this team. We are not – look, the odds are 4 points. They're 4-point favorites. It's not a giant spread here, but you do know that they have a superior wide receiver group, and it is one of the best in the league when those guys are healthy. When Fuller's healthy, DeAndre Hopkins, toast of the town. The good news is James Bradbury has been pretty darn good, and I think some of the questions or comments in the chat room have pointed to some of the things that we have talked about on this podcast with the defense not being elite in these first couple of games. But I tell you one thing, they can be more opportunistic when they don't have to play the entire game. And I think we don't really know. I don't think we know what the defense is just yet because they've been so gassed in those first two games. I think you started to see some signs of what they could be in that last game. But it wasn't perfect.
Yeah, it wasn't perfect at all. And I feel you hit the nail on the head, man. Listen, if we start Darrell Williams as a left tackle, I mean, listen, y'all, they got Whitney Merciless and J.J. Watt that are going to be patrolling the edges, man. Either of those guys are going to be able to feast. I predict they're going to put Whitney Merciless on Darrell Williams because Darrell Williams cannot deal with that speed rush at all, and they're just going to let him feast. I mean, Ron Rivera doesn't want to play new people, but damn it, sometimes it's forced. He was forced against the Cardinals and still put Darrell Williams back in the football. I
don't understand it. I don't understand it.
World.
Somebody needs to ask him that question. That's the question to ask him is why the hell didn't you stick with Greg Little? All right, let's get back into the calls and plow through.
Good evening, guys. Rich in London.
What's up,
Rich?
days
to digest the great win against the Cardinals. Okay, first thing, the Cam news about the Lis FRanc injury, or LeFranc as it probably is. That's absolutely insane. If Cam had that when he hurt himself in pre-season, I mean, it's dislocation. It's not a tendon or a ligament. It's usually considered the bone deep within the foot have moved. I don't know whether that was diagnosed by the team. I mean, I can't believe it wasn't. I mean, it must have been X-ray. So either that happened in the game, or if it had happened, I mean, maybe it was like a dislocation that popped and went back again. But it's absolutely nuts that he was out there for the 2 games. I mean, in that second game against Tampa, Cam couldn't move. Excuse me. not even being able to run or to dive for 1 yarders because he couldn't put any pressure on it. Rivera should be fired. We're going back over old territory, but that is absolutely insane. Anyway, enough of Cam. Good luck. It is possible to like Kyle Allen and want him to do well and still love Cam.
Yes.
We need to get behind Kyle and wish him all the success. Interesting analogy today on something else was of him as a point guard. And it's a point going forward about Kyle Allen and Cam is that we've always said Cam's never had any weapons, and therefore distribution now is something that the Carolina quarterback needs to be good at, and Kyle Allen did a good job. We've got weapons, and some of the throws, I mean, apparently he's PFF's quarterback of the week despite everybody else, because the placement of his throws, I mean, they're in stride. If you know anything about leading people, if you've played a high-level sport, putting the ball in front of the man to run onto it, I mean, that's a thing from rugby, but also, where we put it for some of the throws, the DJ Moore touchdown, only DJ got it, and he took it in stride and went for the house, which was just fantastic. It's really encouraging, so let's just go with it. You guys will be discussing it all night, how long he's going to be in. Cam's going to be out a while. So let's just get behind Kyle. I hope he stays injury-free. Second thing was Greg Little looked superb in pass protection. I mean, Daryl's a flipping turnstile. I've done one poem about left tackles. I don't think I've got another one in me. But if Greg Little can't run...
All right, here's part 2.
It's me again. I haven't finished my point, but I'd just like to say that the amount of time between the last call and re-phoning you is about 15 seconds, which is about the same amount of time Dante Jackson was in the air for that interception. That was incredible. Greg Little looks the part. Run right, or put someone else in to help him if he can't run block. But my God, the pass blocking, that's what he does. And he was, PFF loved him. I didn't think much of him pre the draft. I thought he was overdrafted, but my God, what a difference that was when he came in. I'm sure it's going to take Ron another 6 games before he chooses him outright. But that was really, really encouraging.
Rich knows what's
Dante
up.
Jackson, the tackling issue. I'd love to get hold of him as a rugby player because he sprints up. He's almost too fast for his own good. He comes flying in and it's called selling yourself. So he comes in and basically launches himself. The moment you lose contact with the ground, you can't change position. Okay, and that's what he does. And it worked brilliantly once. Was it Bird he absolutely flattened? But, these guys are also elite athletes and they sidestep or they jink or juke, as you call it. And he misses and ends up, sailing through the air, whipping and looking like
He's
an
a
idiot.
gambler.
If
He's
he
a
ran
gambler.
up and decelerated, so slowed himself down a couple of yards before the hit, don't even make the hit. Contain the guy, because no one's going to run around Dante Jackson. And then just, what's he going to do? He's going to try and run him over, so it's 1 or 2 more yards. You can't run around him because no one can run around him. It's not that difficult to coach this. I mean, honestly, I look at stuff. There's so many things, like, the Baltimore drop kick. It's like, oh, God, I've been doing those since I was 8 years old. There's stuff that can be improved on that are matters of coaching. That could really help. But anyway, in terms of our secondary, I've just seen some grades coming out about how good. But it's something like second in pass defense, which is fabulous. So anyway, it's all quite positive. It's an interesting game against the Texans because they could thrash us or they could completely collapse. I mean, I think, judging by how our pass rush was, and I'm sure you chatted about that, great to see Christian Miller. The Miller and Burns are the new Crockett and Tubbs. There you go. That looked great. Long arms, outside linebacker, edge rushers, nabbing quarterbacks. I mean, they're going to feast on Deshaun Watson if he doesn't get rid of the ball. And they haven't got any line to speak of. So, really looking forward to it. Right, I'm not going to phone a third time. Anyway, looking forward to listening to you on Wednesday, guys. Keep pounding. Love you all. Tony, Cody, everybody listening. Keep pounding.
Thank you, Rich. Fantastic call. And guys, to kind of bring the call up, to kind of bring it back into focus, number 1 point, Cam is going to be out for a while, and Kyle Allen will be in. And he does give us an opportunity at this moment to diversify our offense and see some of those things. I mean, he really was. I mean, the throw to Curtis Samuel for the touchdown pass, he was on the run, and and that was a hefty throw there. The one to Olsen around the back end of the end zone, you saw that the Panthers offense could do more with Kyle Allen in than they could with a very hobbled Cam Newton. The other point I got away from this is, look, Ron Rivera, the whole Greg Little thing, you guys said it. Rich knows exactly what's up right here. If Ron Rivera, we are going to get, this will be the final straw for me with Ron Rivera and the way he uses players. I'm trying to give a guy who's been in the league and knows the team and all of this the benefit of the doubt. But the offensive line has been Ron's Achilles heel throughout his tenure and how they address it. And if we have to see Darrell Williams more getting beat like a drum before they put in it was night and day, guys, between Darrell Williams and Greg Little. And Darrell Williams and Greg Little wasn't perfect, but he was not awful. So to me, he's on to that. And the other thing is Dante Jackson is a gambler.
Yeah.
I tweeted out a photo. I don't remember who sent it out, but it was the cycle of Dante Jackson, and that was he was gonna make a big tackle, then he's gonna miss a wide open tackle, and then he's gonna get a pass breakup, and then he's gonna get an interception that might go to the house, and then he'll miss another wide open tackle. It's just there's inconsistency in his level of play, but you love the talent that you see from a man. And honestly, I mean, as long as he is getting those interceptions, being the ball hawk, man, that's what we drafted him to do.
Right.
Literally just that. We haven't had a dynamic corner like that in a very long time. So, yeah, you have to work through that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But that's why you have to play your young players. Let them play through the mistakes. That's what they have to do.
We're seeing it on defense, though. Ron is going with it on defense, so we got to see it on. And when it comes to Dante Jackson, he's a Greek tragedy, and that is the very strengths that make you a superhero. In y'all's words, your greatness is also your Achilles heel. Is that it's his confidence, it's his braggadocious, it's his swagger that makes him make those big plays. But he also gets overconfident and just didn't make the tackle. He wanted to blow the guy up. And also because he's small, he does have to try to hit like that, or else the guys are going to shrug him off. All right, let's keep going through with these calls, unless you guys got any follow-up points there.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm going to turn to the stat day real quick. For everybody who's talking about James Bradbury and Dante Jackson not working as their cornerbacks right now, pulling up stats, Dante Jackson has two interceptions, 12 solo tackles, and 5 passes defended. James Bradbury has 1 interception, 7 tackles, and 4 passes defended. That ranks 3rd, 4th, and 4th in the NFL, and 3rd, probably 15th or 16th, and 5th in the NFL. So we have two overall guys who are tied for the 2nd best cornerback and the 11th best cornerback in the NFL.
And was Bradbury the second? Was Bradbury the second?
Bradbury was.
Or was he 11? You know, Bradbury has something like a 27%. Like quarterbacks have like a 27% completion rate or a 27 quarterback rating when they go at his side. James Bradbury, if he can put together another couple of picks, he's going to get paid this offseason. All right,
he should.
Here we go. Next call.
What's up, guys? This is Kyle from VA. I didn't get to watch the game live Sunday. I wasn't in jail. But you
did he say he was in jail?
5 minutes, keeping track of everything that was going on.
Pretty sure.
And,
hold on, one more time.
But you better believe I was down there 5 minutes, keeping big. I didn't get to watch the game live Sunday. I wasn't in jail. But you better believe
he worked at a jail.
Keeping track of everything that was going on. And a lot of people talking about that it was against the Cardinals and they're bad. One of the worst teams in the football in the NFL. But a W is a W in the NFL, and it's exactly what we needed. Just a huge pat on the back to Kyle Allen for going out there and just in the moment, just seizing the moment. Went out there and made the plays that he needed to make. Went out there and balled out. Good team win. Like I said, it's exactly what we needed. Everyone knows the Panthers are a momentum team, and we needed this win. They got their swag back in this game. They got their confidence that all this hype in the offseason wasn't just bullshit. They now know that they can go out there, line up against another NFL team, and punch them in the mouth and beat them. Just beat them up all around. So let's just keep the momentum going into Houston. If we can go out there and get another W, man, that would be fantastic. It's still Cam Newton's team, but I hope Kyle Allen continues to perform like this. And that Dante Jackson pick, where he levitated in air, was ridiculous. He just, like, he created the new Jumpman logo. It is now Air Jackson. That was insane. But
yeah.
And Christian McCaffrey, when it's time for his contract to come around, whatever he wants, you give him that and a little more.
Yep,
that's
he's right.
They're gonna pay him.
But,
It should be one of the highest paid in the NFL.
anyway, guys, keep pounding.
All right, I got to say this. Fantastic call. And if you work at a jail, be safe. If you were in jail, free our caller. He's our new Meek Mill.
I'm into that. I like it.
All right, next call.
Tony, this message is for you, bud. I'm icing you up, sucker. Okay?
I do.
Me and Josh, we aren't from Boston, guy. Boston's like an hour and a half away from us. Massachusetts is huge. Okay? If I was from Boston, I'd be talking like this. Let's go park your car in the fucking yard.
Did you say
Watch the
Massachusetts was
Pats win
huge?
the fucking game.
That is how you're
they kick
talking.
Everyone's ass. No, guy.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking Panthers fan. Okay? At least I'm not a Bills fan.
Hey.
Thank God. You know? Boston's an hour and a half
You
away,
know?
guy. Alright? Look up the fucking Basketball Hall of Fame. That's like 20 minutes from my house. Same thing with Josh. Alright? So ice up, sucker.
I feel like
Up, sucker.
hold on. I feel like people have been coming after me a lot lately. Physical side.
They love you, man. They love you. I just got to say, I got no room to talk about anybody's accents with mine. So, like, I'm just having fun.
That
All
dude that definitely had a cup of coffee down at the Dunkin' Donuts, bro. Promise you.
Is Massachusetts really that big? It says it is located in New England region north and has an area of 10,555 square miles. And then
It's definitely not as big as North Carolina, I can tell you that.
North Carolina says has only 3,000 square miles of
What?
inland water. Oh, of inland water. Dude, we have a third of your state of just water. Okay. All right, I'm going to research this more. We are the third largest state, I believe. Can that be right? No. California,
No,
New York,
no.
no. We're going to investigate how big Massachusetts is. But you're right.
Google
You're
it,
not
no.
from Boston because you can pronounce your Oz.
Going to the Harvard bar.
People from Boston cannot pronounce the Oz. All right, I got a great story for you guys about Boston one day.
Alright, so now that I got the fun call out of the way. By the way, this is Nick.
Hey, Nick,
Okay,
don't
same
be
thing
a...
as the last call. But now that I got the fun call out of the way, and hope I got you laughing, Tony. So, I remember when I was watching that Amazon series on us, I forget what it was called.
All or Nothing,
but anyways,
which I call All In.
Dave Kemper was talking about how Pittsburgh, they kind of kept everything secret and that sort of deal. Is it at all possible that the last week or so, the issues with Cam being kept secret and Ron not knowing about it, or something along those lines, could be Dave Kemper just saying, hey, you know, let's not let them know, let's not let any of our opponents know what's going on. Let's kind of keep them out of the loop, or maybe even keep Ron Rivera out of the loop, because let's face it, he's probably not going to last until next year. You know, so
like Tepper's
I'm
going to
wondering
Cam
if
and say, I
Dave
got
Kemper
your
just
back.
saying, hey,
Ron is a
Let's keep
buffoon.
this on the low. Let's not let anybody know about it, or limited details, because that's what I've done in the past, and it could have worked, or it might not have worked. Maybe it's just all he knows. Who knows? Let me know what you guys think. Keep pounding, guys.
Interesting there, because Greg earlier said you're wondering if this signals that Tepper is dissatisfied with Cam, and this is another angle that could just be as logically true, and that is that Tepper is dissatisfied with the way that they have managed Cam, or the use of Cam. Imagine that is saying you got to keep it secret from the coach. That's some top secret mess. I do think, really, for me, the real one of the concerns that's starting to arise for me is how good is the Panthers medical staff. And maybe I'm just maybe I'm just kind of thinking about it from the terms of how Trent Williams really felt betrayed by the medical staff in Washington. And you're starting to hear a couple of more stories. You know, these guys are not infallible. And you got to wonder, too, if it's time for these organizations to start investing in more than just one team doctor, but having a team of team doctors to, you know, I don't know, but RV has been around for a long time, and this hasn't been the only injury that we have had some questions about the timing and the way that they've dealt with it. So that's my thoughts on it. And, guys, what do you think about the secrecy? Because, again, that was to the point of my friend. He's saying this, if they're telling you the foot, it's probably the shoulder. If you're telling you the shoulder, it's probably the foot. I mean, there is some disinformation involved in this, and then the Panthers come out and immediately shut it down and say, Kyle Allen, there's no questions about if Cam is going to be around this week. What do you guys think about the disinformation and secrecy, clandestine nature of the Cam Newton injury?
Well, it is important to, and you alluded to it, Tony, that not all medical staffs in the NFL are created equal. I mean, they're just not. I mean, you mentioned Trent Williams, left tackle for the Redskins, said he refuses to play for a medical staff that would treat him the way they've treated him pretty much. And when you look at Cam Newton and the amount of injuries that he's had to go through and how we've handled the shoulder and rushing him back and, he's able to play when we all knew he wasn't healthy and able to play proper football.
I think it goes back to the ankle. Do you remember he had the ankle surgery in 2013, and it was late? All of the surgeries have they've been wishy-washy on it.
But that's on Marty Herney as well. That's what he's in charge of hiring all the staff and all the personnel. It's not just
That's a good point. Yeah,
that
right.
General managers are in charge of. And if Vermillion has been there forever, then that might be one of Herney's men, is man that is not willing to fire. You don't know.
And it might be the blemish. It might be one of the few Herney blemishes we've seen.
As of late, yeah. I mean, it's possible for sure. If something needed to change, I fear it would probably have to come from David Tepper himself. But I don't have a lot of confidence in our coaching staff or in our medical staff, because of the way they've handled Cam Newton.
That whole Trent Williams thing is so crazy, is that supposedly it's got something to do with some growth on his head, is what I heard. And it's like, hey, guys, I think I should be worried about this big grapefruit-sized thing on my head. I can't get my helmet on. And they're like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll lance it. It will be fine. I don't know. It is bizarre. We need to I want to see more improvements when it comes to the way that we're handling our medical issues. And I don't know if that's on a doctor specifically, on a rehab staff, or on our players and coaches or Marty Herney. But good point, Cody. All right, next call.
C3, what up? Money Bags.
What's up, Money Bag Lawson?
Money Bag Lawson.
Panther Nation Power Father. Corday is my brother from another. Can't forget about the special teams coordinator and wide receiver coach. What's up? I just want to start by saying, man, we need drunk Tony at least once a week. I mean, rational Tony's all right, but I'd rather drunk Tony at least once a week.
All right.
I've been listening to y'all for at least the last 3 years, man. I feel kind of like we family, so I know when y'all bullshit and y'all full of shit or whatever. Tony, I got to call you out on this, man. I know you want the Panthers to win.
Some more smoke.
You want them to win in spite of Kyle Allen. You don't really want them to ball out. I mean, I'm on Cam back too, but I don't want to see him until he's fully healthy, man. Cam like a brother to me. I'll probably give that man a kidney if he needed one. But, like I said,
give one to Joey. Give one to Joey.
Shit, man. We got too much talent on this team. And another point I wanted to make. Curtis Samuel, man. Me and Cody, we've been on this Curtis Samuel train for a minute. He done came such a long way from his rookie year. I mean, I love DJ too, but I think Curtis is a little further along as far as route running and knowing how to play fast and when to play fast. Dante Jackson, I feel like he might be playing the wrong position, man. He a good corner, but I think he'll be an amazing safety. Moulton, I think it's a little Moulton conspiracy going on, man. I think they don't want to put him at left tackle because they don't want to pay him left tackle money. What else? Oh yeah, man, we need to get a special guest in here, man. I got a special request. Y'all need to get Panther Nasty back in the building, man.
True that. He's been on my mind.
We need him back in the building. We need to see what he think now. And my ice up pick, fake Panther fans. It gotta be y'all, man. Come on now. Y'all can't diss the Panther legend Cam Newton like that, man. I mean, I understand he ain't playing good right now. We hurt. Kyle Allen had one good game, but y'all gotta get a man a chance, man. So, real Panther fans, keep pounding. And fake Panther fans, I think I speak for everybody when I say eat a dick.
What a great call. What a great call. I will forgive you for calling me out. What am I getting called out for? Am I not supportive enough of Kyle Allen? Was I too harsh in that opening statement a couple of weeks ago when I said if we don't have Cam Newton, Kyle Allen's trash? Is that really where I'm getting it?
I think that's probably where it comes from, but
okay.
They're just going at you, man. I mean, listen, I said the same shit. I said I didn't believe in Kyle Allen either, but apparently everybody wants to go at your throat for it.
I've been thinking of.
I was gonna say I did bring up the point. What happens if Kyle Allen does this, and everybody talking about how he did terrible in the preseason? And I said, don't judge a quarterback by his preseason because if you do, you hate Cam Newton.
Don't judge a quarterback. Don't judge a quarterback by an Arizona performance.
Yeah, and listen, I'll say this. I did say also that if Allen did ball out, we were going to have a quarterback controversy on our hands if we wanted to say that there was one or that there wasn't one. So I don't know, man.
I think one thing that people should be aware of me when it comes with Cam Newton and my love for him and this Kyle Allen thing, I have not gone after people who have been pleased with Kyle Allen like some Panther fans have. Some Panther fans act like if you ain't just saying that the world has ended because Cam Newton wasn't out there Sunday, that you hate on Cam Newton. And I don't think that that's fair either to a lot of people. I think what we have to just completely say is we're pleased with Kyle Allen's performance against Arizona. We will see how he does under stiffer competition, but we would really like to see Cam Newton back this season at full health and a full go. But I also love Cam enough that I don't want him to put himself in danger if he's not ready.
Can we agree? So last year, I think we had a lot of conversations about, or at least over the offseason, there was a statement that was pretty frequently brought up. A 70% Cam is better than 100% backup, no matter who it is. Do you feel that way anymore? Because I don't.
No, I agree with you. I was going to bring that up earlier, but good point.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that the way Cam played, he sure didn't look 70%, did he?
No. And that 70 didn't look better than Kyle Allen's 100.
But I think you're right, that if there's something going on to the point where it was just this, is that Kyle Allen breathed a little life into that offense. I do think that I want to see it again, and I hope he does it. I think he can do it, but I think here, again, we gave him some solid protection, or some okay protection. You guys pointed it out in the post-game show. It was better than what Cam had in those first 2 weeks. We just don't need Kyle Allen getting injured, right? And that's something that we have taken for granted so much with Cam, is that he just always gets up. But we saw last year what happened to quarterbacks when they don't have Cam's, and I use the word durability, even though he's been dealing with these injuries. We got 2 quarterbacks killed in 2 weeks last year.
Yeah.
So is that you? I mean, Darrell Williams keeps playing like that. I don't know if it doesn't matter how good Kyle Allen is. He might not be alive much longer.
No, and then listen, Will Greer is the same build, so then you run the risk of hurting him. Then what? You're putting Christian McCaffrey as the quarterback too.
Let's go ahead and get him hurt.
Yeah, we're rushing Cam back. We're rushing Cam back, doing like get out there with the walking boot, brother. Good. All right, next go.
Chef Jeff Hodge here.
Chef
Well,
Jeff,
I guess all of our fears are true. Cam Newton seriously injured his foot during the preseason and probably the Tampa Bay game. Honestly, Ron Rivera and the coaching staff should be criminally charged with felonious neglect. If this were like a child custody case, I'd be in fucking jail. It's ridiculous. You can't tell me that they didn't know, that the medical staff didn't know that he had a Lis Franc injury in the beginning. If that's the case, then we need to fire the whole fucking medical staff, RV included, if that's the case. But I don't believe that's the case. They knew. Now, did Cam Newton tell them I'm good and I can play? Yeah, probably. I'm probably 100% sure on that. But it's up to the coaching staff to be the mature individuals and tell him, no, Cam, you're going to hurt yourself. Just sit down, let us play Kyle Allen, because it's obvious that they had faith in Kyle Allen. Look at what he did against the worst defense. You're telling me that he couldn't have gone out there and had a couple of throws against St. Louis and won us the game and got us that yard against Tampa Bay and won that game too? Bullshit. Total negligence by the coaching staff. And I'm going on the hill with Cody and the rest of them. Fire Ron, fire Norv, give Marty Herney one more year, and hey, let's take the season and get a high draft pick and put a quarterback competition in for next year, the last year of Cam Newton's contract. I will guarantee you, if he is 100% healthy and he's able to come back next year 100% healthy, he will show the world what Cam Newton is all about. Thanks, guys. Keep pounding.
I'm eating whatever Chef Jeff Hodge is cooking. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Hey, so what he's basically painted us a picture of is you're at the bar with a friend who's too drunk to drive, and you're trying to talk him out of driving that car like Cam Newton playing this game, and you're going to call him the Uber. So the question is, if we called him that Uber, is he riding all the way home in that Uber, or is he going to stop somewhere else and find his own way home? And do you think Cam Newton is the reason why he's in this position, because he pushed himself to the point where he shouldn't have been doing that?
Well, there is some merit to that. I mean, listen, in the Amazon Prime series, Cam sat there and told us all that he is willing to do more than any other quarterback in the NFL to put his team in victory formation, you know? And I feel that mindset of him having to be Superman, having to be everything for this team, has kind of come back to start to bite him now. And now it's his own ego and his own mentality kind of getting in his own way now. And I do feel that there is some merit to that. And not only does he have to change throwing motion and all these other small issues as it grows older, but the mentality has to change also. You have to live to fight another day, and Cam needs to be better at doing that.
I have one bone to pick out of that, and that's that Kyle Allen may have turned the tide. That's an unfair comparison because Kyle Allen had a lot more time to throw the ball than Cam Newton did those first 2 weeks.
Agreed.
I mean, it was not an easy game on either front because our offensive line was, Swiss cheese. Right. I mean, people could just run right through it.
I thought they were all right against the Rams. I thought they were better than expected against the Rams. It was really that Tampa Bay game and that Barrett game. What is his name?
Yeah, Barrett.
He leads the league in sacks right now. That dude's got 9 sacks already or some crap like that.
Yeah, I think it's a record. It's sacks through 3 games. Yeah.
But continue, CK.
Well, I mean, I think it's an unfair point to even let's just talk about the fact that everybody's blaming Ron for Cam Newton being out now. If he hadn't played in preseason, everybody's going to point out the fact that he had shoulder surgery, right? His foot has nothing to do with his daggone shoulder, so let's not blame him being played in the preseason as the reason why. I mean, a lot of players played in the preseason. It wasn't his shoulder that got hurt. It was his foot on a non-contact injury. Now, if that had happened week 1, what are you going to do at that point?
You're going to say, why didn't you play him in the preseason?
Yeah, well, that harps right back on the point that I was talking about last week. Is it's kind of a no-win situation, because if you don't play him in the preseason and he gets injured week 1, you're going to say, oh, he should have played more preseason. But if he plays in the preseason and he gets injured like he did, then you're going to complain they're playing him in the preseason when he doesn't need to be. It's a no-win situation sometimes for Ron, you know?
Yeah, and I think, I don't know. I mean, one day we'll find out. We'll find out what the real story is when all of these guys are gone. That's what it's going to take, is when Ron is gone and Cam Newton is gone, we will find out really what has happened here behind the scenes, I guess. I don't know what we're going to be able to figure out, but I do know this, is that, I will defend Cam in every situation, but I do disagree on one thing, is I think that Cam in those first 2 games was not, for the first time, he wasn't making our team better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think, and my defense against Norv Turner and the play calling is got to do with, is that it's very hard to call a game when you can't do basic stuff. And that was the problem in week 1. It was a little bit of a problem. It was a giant problem in week 2. And you got to know that either Cam Newton forgot how to play football or he truly was injured. And when you saw Kyle Allen delivering on those, you got to do some things that we were limited with. So Cam's got to rest up and get healthy, and we got to keep Kyle Allen clean. The problem is our offensive line has not been known to do that. Start Greg Little, put Darrell Williams in jail, free our caller. Next call.
Hey guys, this is Jedi Shore. I'm calling in. That was a great game. I was a little nervous at first, especially after the first drive, and Kyle Allen fumbled. I was like, oh,
you and me
here we go.
both.
I was ready for like a rough game from there. And then when we couldn't stop Kyler Murray from running, I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those games where it's real close and we end up losing somehow. It was looking like we're going to be 0-3. But we turned it around. It was great. Great team win all together. Defense played well in the second half. Kyle Allen really stepped up and was really dynamite. Christian McCaffrey did Christian McCaffrey things, and the receivers actually really got to shine, as well as Greg Olsen at tight end position. I guess the one downside is Darrell Williams, but I'm sure you guys will talk about that. Darrell Williams was terrible. But other than that, everything was great. I guess I want to bring up something. I don't know if anybody else will bring this up, but one thing I think maybe, and this, not to say that Kyle Allen is a better quarterback than Cam. You know, I'm one of the ride hard for Cam. I've been fighting people in the comments all week who are saying that Cam's never done anything for this franchise, and it's really been a struggle going through this week with those guys trying to ignore them. But not that I'm saying Kyle Allen might be better than Cam, but he might be better fitted for Norv's system of getting the ball off quick to your playmakers and running the offense that way, rather than where Cam was mostly, and with his most success he's had with the play action and play action running the ball or throwing it off quick. So I don't know what you guys think about that. I guess I'll hear it when you guys talk tonight. All right, keep hunting. I'll go.
Y'all take it. Cody, what you got for that?
I mean, you know, one of the we had a female in our chat room last Sunday who brought up that very issue that it felt as though Norv Turner or Kyle Allen fit better with it. Here's the point: we don't know. We've never seen a healthy Cam Newton run Norv Turner's offense, but for a few games last season.
And he wasn't even fully healthy, it turns out.
Nope.
Yeah, it was never fully healthy then. So I think that's a bit of an overstatement. I do feel that Allen is able to competently run the offense that Norv Turner has put in place. So, and I feel that's a drop-back quarterback system. That's what him and Cam have been working towards. So it's, you know, a natural fit for Allen. to kind of jump on into. And he has the benefit of having a lot of talent around him right now, like a Curtis Samuel, like a DJ Moore, like
Greg
the
Olsen.
ultimate safety net and Greg Olsen. So
McCaffrey,
yeah, for sure.
I think it's less about Cam being able to run Norv's system and more about right now Kyle Allen have the physical tools to take advantage of some of the weapons we have right now, and that Cam couldn't do that at this moment. And then you take away Cam, and you can't run Cam, he can't throw Cam at this point. And then you got these guys that are kind of sitting on the shelf. You are trying to maybe get these guys to do things like DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel that maybe aren't best suited to their skill set. So I just think at this point, man, is that we'll see. We want to see. I think that while we were very flattering of the offense for the Texans, I do think, man, that we have some electric guys at wide receiver, and if we can start hitting them and doing some things and keep Kyle Allen clean and do some play action stuff and go downfield, we can get some big plays, and we just weren't seeing it with Cam. I mean, he's not right. And I'm starting to wonder, it's not the foot only. I'm really suspicious about the shoulder still. I mean,
it's mine too, I think. It's got to be a little bit of mine, man.
I think it's all three. He's just fatigued. He's frustration. There's a lot of things going on there. Just a couple more calls to go. We still got a lot of show to get through.
Podcast. How's it going? This is the world famous G. Camassier, a.k.a. 910. Boy, 910 Jacksonville, North Cap to the day I die. Hey, I want to put something in you guys' mind tonight that, I've been thinking about since the first game. A lot of people haven't really talked about it, thought about it. When is Bruce Irvin going to get on the field?
I don't think he is.
When is he going to get on the field? Bruce Irvin is a hell of a defensive player.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He can play defensive end. He can play outside linebacker. Y'all remember him, in Seattle. He did good. He won the ring. He did good in Oakland. And he did good. I hate to say this. He did good in Atlanta. When is Bruce Irvin going to step on the scene? The reason why I say that is I believe once he steps on the scene, our defense will be even better. That's my opinion. But Bruce Irvin coming from that edge, man, with that speed, and plus he doesn't miss tackles. You know what I'm saying?
He might help us in the run game
really
a little bit
if
we could get him on the field.
Can put us in a top 5 defense. If we're not already, I don't even know. Because he played good against the Cardinals. I know everybody's saying this is the Cardinals and they was the worst team in the league. And I understand that, but they're still an NFL team. Because if the Patriots would have beat them, everybody would have been like, oh, God, the Patriots, da-da-da-da-da. And y'all know I can't stand the cheating-ass Patriots. I will say that to the day I die. They cheated us out of the Super Bowl.
Man, a lot of heavy-handed calls
enough
tonight.
Of that. What y'all takes on Bruce Irvin? When he comes back, will he actually help out on defense? Because me personally, I think he will. And always remember, y'all, keep pounding.
Keep pounding. G with the fire call as always. I don't know. I want to hear a few of you guys go first on this one because I have a few thoughts about the whole Bruce Irvin thing.
What you got, CK?
Well, I mean, I've been a big fan of the fact that we have him on the team, not only just for his ability but his veteran leadership. He's been there. He knows how to succeed, and it's just a matter of putting him in the right situation. And I really thought we had him in the right situation. The thing that, I'm going to be a bit of a Debbie Downer when it comes to the 8 sacks we got last week. A lot of those were coverage sacks. It wasn't that our defensive line was getting there. It's that they were getting there before he could get to the line of scrimmage because he was basically getting ready to take off. So there's a lot of different things that I think we look at there. But even with that, we got 8 sacks without K'Wan Short and without Bruce Irvin on the field. I personally believe they will make us better once they're there. It's just a matter of getting them back to a place where they can be effective again. I can tell you right now, personally, and I think everybody on this panel right now can agree, KK Short is definitely better than Vernon Butler, right?
Yeah. Dude, 100%. Vernon Butler, I was just going to bring him up, is one of the biggest busts in Panther history when it comes to – he played only 18% of the snaps, I think. Let me see. I got it pulled up here. Vernon Butler played 24. He only played 18 snaps, 24%, and that's without KK in there. A lot of McCoy. Brian Burns played 75% of the defensive snaps. They are all in on Brian Burns. You gotta love that.
So,
Don Terry Poe is seemingly, I think, playing a lot better in this 3-4 system. People have not been crying about Don Terry Poe because he's not supposed to be the sack artist. He's going to be the guy we need to watch to see how he's doing against the run. The question, I think, when it comes to Bruce Irvin, is that we kind of have a wealth of riches. And while we are very critical of Ron Rivera not going with the young hands in so many instances and knowing when to put in the guys, I think this year he has found a way to rotate the young guys in, and that has is complicating it in a good way. I mean, Mario Addison is even balling out right now. He was chasing down Kyler Murray, and I've been worried that Mario Addison was about to hit a wall, right? Is that like about his age and some things? But Christian Miller, those guys, I'm actually very excited that they're playing the youngins as much as they are.
Well, and that brings me to what I was going to say. I have some feelings about it. Every once in a while, we have an injury blessing where an injured player goes down, and Ron Rivera is literally forced to play the younger guys on the roster. So now we have Marquise Haynes and Christian Miller, who, by the way, had 2 sacks against Arizona. Coverage or not, that's still 2 sacks. Now you see these guys starting to build up their play time, and now they're becoming more acclimated to NFL football. It's a win-win all around. And, you know, I feel that that's what they were drafted to do, to hold down the edge for years to come. And they wanted to have Bruce Irvin on the team to help them so that way they didn't have to be that guy so early on in their career. But now that they're getting the snaps, they're further along in that development. I mean, we might not even need Bruce Irvin. It might just be another another good thing.
Christian Miller got 2 sacks on 24 snaps. He only played 24 snaps, and he was able to get 2 sacks. He played more snaps than Vernon Butler and F.A. Obata, though. Interesting, I think.
As he should.
I still think that if you look at those, I think we're not giving enough credit to our secondary. I mean,
you're right. I think you're right.
I can't remember the last time that we've had a secondary that has allowed our defensive line to get there, you know, and actually get the quality amount of sacks that we got. Now, granted, those 8 sacks, you know, 5 of them occurred between 2 drives. So, I mean, it's not like it was a wealth of riches throughout the entire game. It was specific scenarios that we were able to accomplish that. But, you know, I don't want to take anything away. That's 8 sacks. I mean, I'm happy for that stat line any day of the week. But I think we need to really seriously look at the fact that last year it was our secondary we were most worried about. And this year, I feel like aside from our nickel corner, I feel like we have no weaknesses on our secondary.
And you might not even have it there. Cockrell was really good, guys.
Yeah. Well, the thing, my thing is, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know a lot about Bruce Irving, and we have a lot of really great defensive linemen. The way I kind of look at it is, if you have defensive line talent, if some is good, more is better. Bring Bruce Irving on. Let's just keep pounding with this great front 7. And now not only the front 7, everybody else is doing really well as well. Also, so it's kind of, they all play into each other. You know, the secondary helps the defensive line out, and when the defensive line's not playing well, or secondary's not playing well, the defensive line helps them out. It's a good back and forth. I'm happy with the defense.
And I'll say one last point.
Vernon Butler so bad.
And I'll say one last point to that. You know, with the post game, we were talking about how we don't feel like, you know, Luke looks like Luke. Well, guess what? Luke doesn't need to look like Luke.
Thank
when
Jesus.
Everybody and the defense is doing their jobs. You know, so we don't really need to focus so much on him. He doesn't have to sit there and be a superstar. Yes, he missed a couple of interceptions that he could have easily picked, and then that changed the entire, you know, flow of the game. But when you have a cohesive unit, you don't need every person, or you don't need your superstars to be superstars anymore.
Yeah, he's still leading the league in tackles, though.
Yeah, and I think Shaq's been playing well, and to compliments, hats off to Cody for all the things he said about Brian Burns. Brian Burns has looked as fast as Luke Kuechly. And what I mean by that is, how you've seen Luke Kuechly just play fast for so long?
Yeah.
Brian Burns playing fast. His mind is playing as fast as his body, and that's what you don't usually see a lot with young defensive ends. I've been very impressed by how good he's going to be. The question is, can he develop into a better run stopper? We have not been great against the run just and part of it is because we got those guys that get muscled off the blocks a little bit or can get hung up.
I don't feel that he's been necessarily bad there.
Right.
Obviously, everyone has to get better at things, but I don't feel that he's been.
He's been sensational. He's been sensational. Let's just say it.
Awesome, man. He's been absolutely incredible. I compared him to DeMarcus Lawrence for the Cowboys coming out in the draft, and he has every bit, if not more, upside than Lawrence does. And I mean, he is an incredible edge rusher that's going to be doing a lot for us for a long time.
Well, even with an edge rusher, you see what happens is they get into the backfield, and then they all of a sudden they'll just stop on the play if the ball goes beyond the line of scrimmage. I can't tell you how many times the pass play went beyond him, and he still ended up there making at least half of a tackle.
They have comeback speed. They have comeback speed where some of the big, heavy-handed guys that we've had in the past, if they get pushed past the quarterback, they can't get their big bodies to turn around. But the play is not over for these guys. And that's what's fun about this youth is in that speed is that even when they don't make the best play or make the play that is the ender of it, right? They're still trying to fight after the ball. The motor on that kid is amazing. Next call.
Yep.
What up, C3? Josh from Mass, and lo and behold, after that game, we start getting quick answers and quick information coming out of the organization. Oh no, we're not starting Cam next week. And then early today or late yesterday, we get information about what exactly is going on with his foot. Well, isn't that strange? Almost as if somebody higher up said to Ron and the media group and everybody, hey, enough of your screwing around. Enough of the pretending you don't know what's going on. This is our franchise quarterback. This is the man who's been the face of this team for going on, we're going on 9 years now. And while I'm sure he's less than pleased with what Cam has produced in his time, the last season and so far this season, Tepper's a numbers guy, flat out. And that tells me he's a guy who wants the facts and the data. And I believe after the week 1 and week 2 bungling and mishandling of Cam's situation, Tepper's looking at all this going, all right, this says a lot about what's going on here, because I don't believe for a minute that, Cam forced them to play him. He can't. He absolutely can't. Ron's the coach. The athletic staff is, these are the guys who make the decision, not players. So to think that, this wasn't Ron and company trying to push him back before he was 100% off of the foot injury, whether they knew the extent of it, whether the whole team knew the extent, or whether they sent him in for an x-ray and said, well, nothing's broken. But lo and behold, you look at that part of the foot that this injury afflicts, and there's multiple bones connected by lots of small ligaments. So really, even just a minor inflammation of any one of those ligaments is going to possibly cause extreme pain. I mean, it's the part of your foot that bends. I mean, I haven't broken anything there, but hold on. Hold the phone. 5, 4,
I got you.
3. I'll call you back.
I
Hey,
got
that's
you.
the math again. Try to keep this to 2 calls only here. But anyway, so it's a very sensitive to damage section of your foot. It's not something that's going to heal from you pushing off of it, running, etc. It's just going to get aggravated again and swell up.
So I really do think the best solution is to sit Cam probably right to the bye week. Give him as much time as we can. See what kind of performance Allen can put in. I mean, in my mind, the jury's still out on him, and it has to be. Realistically, it has to be just still out on him. It just has to be. Hopefully he can perform. Hopefully he can hang in there, and I'm thinking maybe we only fall one more game, and then we can pull out the other 3 or the other 2. I forget how many do we have. Yeah, but hopefully we can only lose one more game while he's still there, which I think is a realistic hope and expectation. And again, to me, it just smells like coaching staff knows they're on the hot seat, and for a long time, an injured Cam was better than 100% backup, and
now it's not.
Been mismanaged so much to this point that it's not the case anymore. So I think the organization as a whole, even though there's a new captain at the helm, if you will, I think they own the chance. They own the opportunity. If for nothing else, for not giving the man a goddamn O-line, not giving him protection, and just drafting him and going, well, we got a mobile quarterback. We don't need to worry about the O-line. So I think this is on staff, and they're going to have to try to rescue the season from potential shambles and not having him there. Keep pounding, fellas.
Keep pounding. Well, listen, J-Dub knows that him and I are on the same page about a lot of this, man. And everybody knows the hill that I'm dying on. And like I said, I hope I'm wrong. And I was going to say something, but I have to dip out a little bit earlier tonight, and I don't want to leave.
What, spending for 2.5 hours with us? God, what a wussy. You got to leave after 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I guess I'm a casual fan. I don't know. Yeah, but I do have to go. So real quick, I know Legacy mentioned this in the chat room earlier. So I'm doing this for her honor. I'm going to do a real quick ice up pick. I'm going to ice up Morgan Fogarty, who put on Twitter. So that someone found Cam Newton driving on his moped again on the 23rd, riding around uptown, and she put on her Twitter, too hurt to play, but able to ride his motorbike. Some optics say, or some might say the optics aren't ideal. Well, Morgan, what do the optics say in your opinion? Is the man not allowed to drive around the city that he lives in? It's just another example of an uppity media person judging Cam Newton on dumb shit that has nothing to do with football, has nothing to do with character, and is frankly pretty damn dumb. So to Morgan Fogarty, who is now blocking Panthers Twitter people, ice up, son, or daughter, whatever.
Can I bring up one point about that? How about the optics on this? Is this his right foot or his left foot?
His right
foot. So that's your load foot.
His right foot? Well, then wouldn't driving with your right foot be problematic while you can accelerate on a scooter with your hands?
Touche. Touche.
Casual fan. That.
Good point.
All right.
Boom, boom.
All right, Cody, we will catch you. I know you got to run. You're a casual fan. Get your casual ass out of here, and we'll catch up with you casually in a 5-hour show after the game.
Pray for me, y'all. Pray for me.
We will rebaptize him when he comes back. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. All right, Greg. Greg, I know you want to take on that call from John's from Mass.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about it. First of all, I want to say that Massachusetts is roughly 5 times, or excuse me, North Carolina is roughly 5 times the size of Massachusetts.
Ooh.
Get up earlier. We were talking about it.
You casual Massachusetts.
That goes back to a question we had earlier, a call we had earlier. But I feel like his whole premise of his call is based on Cam Newton not having surgery. With the whole coming back after bye week, we don't know if they're going to do surgery or rehab yet. So while what he says makes a lot of sense, if Cam Newton is only going to go through rehab and feels better in a few weeks, if he has surgery, he needs to be out the whole year. I want him to have the rest of the year and then off season next year to recover. That way, when he comes back, he has no excuse about being injured for any reason, football related, and he should be 100%. The other point I want to talk about. Oh, good.
When's the deadline for that? When's the deadline to know? Because I feel like it's right around the bye week. It feels like this is that if Cam ain't right, well, I mean, if he's not really showing signs of getting a lot better after 6 weeks, I don't know if it will be a full 6 weeks. It's a 4 to 8 week period if you heal on your own. There's got to be a point where we say, you know what, is that if he isn't right 100% by this point, we're shutting it down. Surgery is the option. There we're going, and it needs to be quicker than it does too late.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know. I think we're going to find out. I think by the end of the bye week, we're going to get a sense if that's where they're going.
Okay. Well, the other part I had to say about that was he's talking about Allen. The jury's still out on Allen. I commented on earlier. I don't take a lot into preseason. Because in preseason, it doesn't matter if it's a third game, whatever game it is, everybody's vanilla. Nobody plays the same way in preseason they do in a regular game. Go back to Cam Newton's first preseason, and you will not believe he was going to be the quarterback he was just by watching his first preseason. Okay? I think, personally, I need one more game from Allen of par quarterback play. Not phenomenal, not fantastic. Par quarterback play to win the game, and I can run with him the rest of the season if need be. Because he has the pedigree to be in the position he's in. He has the record so far, starting quarterback in the NFL, to be in the position
and familiarity with the system, too. He's been with the organization for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. It all fits well for me. I just would love to see one more game before I give him that blessing.
So now is that one more in addition to the New Orleans game last year?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, because I know the New Orleans game, I'm sorry, he played well, but I feel like they let us win that game because if we lose that game, we're like the number 7 pick. If we win that game, we're like 16 wherever we pick.
Aren't they sitting people by that point?
They're division rivals, so they're going to play that game.
They had their starters out the first half, and that's when Kyle Allen did his Kyle Allen did his work on their starters.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. 2 more calls real quick.
Jags game. I was wondering if Cam's going to play today. I ain't going to drive 8 hours all the way from Athens, Alabama to see fucking Kyle Allen start. Like, what?
You might see a win, though.
He's upset that he drove from Alabama. Here, I think he's coming back.
Chef Jeff Hodge here.
Welcome back, Chef.
I guess all of our fears are true. Cam Newton seriously injured.
We've heard this call. All right, good. All right, we're done with the calls. All right, we're done with the calls, guys. Yes. Way to go. Cat calls have been amazing. Don't stop calling. I want to be like this every week where we have so much to say and cover and continue to go this because this is your show, Drive the Car. All right, last segment of the show, guys. We're going to get in our picks. But before we do that, if anybody needs to go, this is your time to dip out because I'm about to play a short interview with the head odds maker from MyBookie. So are you guys in or out?
I'm in to win it.
All right, here we go.
This far.
I'd like to welcome Raphael Esparza, head odds maker for MyBookie.ag, America's most trusted sportsbook. Thank you, Raphael, for joining the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. It's fun times, and I can't believe NFL Week 4 is here.
Yeah, me and my friends always joke that you wait all year long for football season, and then when it gets here, you just count the days until it's gone. It's like a vacation. As soon as you finish your first day, it's all about how many days left before you go back to work. We're in week 4, and boy, there's a lot of news going around. But hey, the Panthers got a W. And how did they look against the spread this past week?
It was a good outcome for us because the betting public and the media liked Arizona. They all thought Arizona was going to get that first W since you were playing with a Cam Newton-less Carolina Panthers. But really impressed on Kyle Allen, how he played the game. Didn't make any mistakes, 4 TDs, 0 INTs. That's probably big. And they were able to establish the run. Anytime you can establish a run game with a quarterback, rookie quarterback, or your quarterback that's not a starter, I think it's huge pressure. And that's what the Panthers were able to do on the road. And let's just face it, Carolina in the second half was a totally different team than what we saw in the first half. And I think that's the reason why they got that big W on the road.
Was the line 6 last week, somewhere around that?
It was around. It opened up around there. When Cam went bye, wasn't playing. It actually was anywhere between 1.5, depending on what time you were looking at it. The betting money was pretty much all over the place because of that game, because of the status. I mean, because Carolina kind of made it close, saying that, okay, we don't know if Cam's going to play or not. He isn't going to play tonight. So it opened up around there. It closed. I think it closed Arizona minus a 2-point favorite.
So, and speaking of Cam and the injury, is that news has broken with The Athletic over the last day that the injury could be more than, or seems to be more than just a minor midfoot sprain, but instead they've used the dreaded word Lis Franc. Now the Panthers are going on the road against Houston, and I looked at the line just before our call. I think it was like 4.5, I believe, for Houston. No, the Texans by 4, favored by 4. Has the Cam Newton news moved the numbers at all?
No, because we kind of figured he probably wasn't going to play at least 2 weeks, weeks 3 and weeks 4. So we planned that number out. We planned it was going to be Houston minus 4. And then once Allen got the W and all that, you figured, okay, we don't need to stress on Cam coming back. We're playing on a pretty much a free dime, if you want to call it, going to Houston. Now you can rest Cam Newton another week. I've been telling people all last couple of days, what if Carolina and what if the Saints go keep on winning games where their star quarterbacks are on the mend? What's going to happen if the Saints go perfect 6-0? Are they going to pull Teddy? If the Panthers win 4 or 5 in a row, are they going to pull Allen? It's going to be very, very interesting in this division with quarterbacks.
That's got to kind of make people nervous on the betting side is when there's so much uncertainty with a quarterback. And for me, Kyle Allen, while he checked off some boxes against Arizona, we have to remember it's one of the worst defenses, if not the worst defense in the league after last week. And now they're going to be playing a premier Texans team. I think this line is favorable for the Texans. I think that's kind of sexy, just 4 points and in Houston. And I hate to say that, I never pick against the Panthers.
I agree, and I like you, and I like this show, so I don't want to be too negative because I want to come back. But yeah, you're right. Houston's a very, very soft 4. Because let's face it, the Texans defense is not even close to what what they saw in Arizona. What Houston did last week in LA, I mean, everyone thought the Chargers could have been maybe a playoff contender, Super Bowl contender. What they did in the second half to only give up Chargers a field goal in the 4th, that's just a small field goal. I mean, that was very impressive. Houston, let's face it, they should have beat the Saints in week 1. A favorable 4, I do believe this one. I would not be, the betting public will move this off 4. Would not be shocked if Texans are close to a 5, maybe even a 6-point favorite by kickoff.
Some broad spectrum of lines when it comes to the South, the NFC South. You go from 10-point favorite from the Rams to probably the game of the week with the Cowboys. Dallas favored 2.5, and I believe that's on the road there. What are your thoughts on this kind of NFC South? Just as you've seen the first 4 weeks unfold, or 3 weeks.
I mean, I think you can probably well agree that a couple years ago, maybe even last year, NFC South, best division in football. This year, maybe could have said the same thing. Maybe the best division in football is the Saints. Atlanta were coming in healthy. Carolina with Cam Newton, maybe is he healthy? Maybe he can have a full season. Now you can almost check that off as maybe one of the worst divisions in football because everyone's banged up. The Falcons are banged up. Carolina, the Saints. I mean, the Saints only minus 175 to win a division, and they're playing with no Drew Brees. So, yeah, it's a wide-open division. It's going to be very interesting what Dallas does in New Orleans with the late game on Sunday. The point spread only 2.5. With the Dallas being maybe the front runners of the NFC, can Teddy Bridgewater and that defense stop Dak in that running game?
Did everybody go get on the Bucs bandwagon versus the Giants at home last week? Is that where the money was at?
At first it was, and then we got to some great two-way action. on late Saturday and Sunday. So I was afraid that everyone was going to jump on the Bucks, but we said okay on that game. But hats off to New York. I writ them off with Jacobs and all them. So it was a really good game, a game that I thought maybe had no TV appeal, had probably one of the best TV appeals. I mean, granted, you had to see Barkley go out, but really like the way the Giants flowed the game.
Well, they're giving up 10 points. The Rams are giving up 10 points to the Bucks, and I wouldn't be surprised. I picked the Giants to win last week just on this radio show that we go on Fridays, and I just thought, man, this is a game the Bucks always blow at home against the team they should beat. Strangely, I think the 10 points is a lot for a team that showed some offensive life that could hang with the Rams in that case, but it all comes down to that Rams defense. Do you think there's anything to that, or do you stay away from this one?
I would say just because the Rams are at home. I mean, they took care of the Saints, even though they were playing the whole second half with no Drew Brees. I love the Rams defense. We saw it late Sunday night when they played Cleveland. I think we might see the same thing. Aaron Donald, him and Mac for the Chicago Bears are just so fun to watch on defense. There's not too many people that I can call and say, I'm going to watch this game because I want to see the defense on the field. I think defense is going to be too much. Now, laying at 10 points, I would probably lay back, but would not be shocked if there's one big blowout this week. It could be this game right here, Rams.
Yeah,
Bucks.
definitely. All right, so, and then I think the Falcons are hosting Tennessee. Nobody ever knows what to do with either of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta's all banged up on both sides of the ball. I mean, they play much better at home. They won that late Sunday night game against the Eagles. But, boy, the Eagles look really bad. So how big is that win, beating the Eagles, who just lost last week? So, yeah, this is a big game for the Falcons. I thought Tennessee, after winning week one, I'm like, wow, they destroyed Cleveland. Maybe this team is going to be what we all thought they were. But, boy, they played some stinkers. I lean towards the Falcons on this one. I think they get a big win. They need a win right now because if they do not want to fall too far behind with the Saints, knowing that Drew Brees is probably still going to be out for another 4 weeks.
All right. Well, do you think that when it comes to, let's just circle back the wagons one last time to the Panthers Texans, the number over under 46.5. The Panthers, I think that everybody's expecting some points to be put up on this. Do you expect the Panthers offense with Christian McCaffrey at the helm to be able to at least keep up with the Texans?
If they can't run the ball against Houston, like I said, what we saw Houston in the second half against the Chargers, then I think this thing goes under the total 46.5. It all depends on what you think. If you like Houston, I think you're going to probably look at the under because I think their defense is going to win most of this game. But if you think Carolina can hang around and keep it interesting and maybe steal this game at Houston, then you got to go with the over. You think they're going to establish the run. Allen's going to have a decent game, maybe throw 3 touchdown passes or whatever. Then you have to look at the over. It all depends on what you think is the outcome of this game. I think Houston's at home. Their defense is playing tough. It could be a very long day for Carolina in that offense, so would not be shocked if the under hits.
How do you guys do it, man? That's my question. Everybody has to ask you guys. How do you nail the numbers to the dang decimal point, it feels like, almost every week, and especially when you put the money on it? I feel like if you don't put any money on it, you are a betting savant. Then you put $1 on it, and boy, Vegas and you odds makers get it. How do you get it so right?
It's hard to get a crystal ball on eBay. I mean, it's really, really hard to get a good one. No, it's just, I mean, for me, I've been doing this for over 20 years, doing it in Vegas, now do it over here for MyBookie. It's just, like I said, it's almost human nature. Like, people think we have computers and algorithms and robots helping us. And like I said, I do my numbers every week, and it's pretty much the same as what we put out. So it's just knowing the teams, knowing what the betting public is going to do. That's probably the biggest key. We could care less. At the end of the day, we could care less who wins. As long as we get two-way action, we could care less who's the outcome. So it's knowing your customer and knowing where the money is going to come in. That's when you hit that big number, and the public's like, how did they do it again?
Yeah. All right. Well, we're huge fans of MyBookie. Raphael, tell them where to go. America's most trusted sports book and the easiest one that I've seen to navigate.
Yeah, MyBookie.ag, 100% sign-up bonus still on the board. That means if you open up an account today and put in $200, we're going to throw in an additional $200. Some great games. The first week of bye week, so have some great matchups. Don't forget to jump over to MyBookie.ag, get that Thursday game, get all those Sunday games, and finally we might have another scoring Monday night game. Wow. Maybe we'll see more than 40 points scored on a Monday night game.
Don't forget to use the promo code OVERTIME when you go to MyBookie.ag. And Raphael, hopefully we can get you back on the podcast and keep doing this in the future.
Not a problem. You guys have a great rest of the weekend and enjoy the games on Sunday.
All right, guys, that's the little betting segment we got in here, and I just wanted to go. I felt like that would be a good segue to jump into our picks for the week. Let's start with the Panthers at Texans. Texans are favored by 4. The over under is 46.5. Greg, I got to take Cody off the list. I'll get his picks via text. Greg, who wins this game? And are you interested in any of the line?
No, I don't care about the line. I try not to look at the line whenever I'm doing it in my kind of betting because I usually don't bet just straight up with games. But I'm going to just be a homer, and I'm going to take Carolina. I think that we are going to pull this out. I think our defensive line is going to really show up, and I think we pull this one out 28-24 Carolina.
Gosh, all right. Right on CK, I'm going to let you go next and give myself a breather. I don't know what to do. I want to pick the Panthers. Is CK there? Did we lose him?
Sorry, I had you on mute.
Oh, okay.
So last week, or a couple weeks ago, I picked the Bucks, and I said we were going to destroy them. It wasn't even just a matter of winning. It was going to be a blowout. That didn't happen. So I'm picking the Texans today. It's going to be a close game, but I think the Texans, unfortunately, they have too many weapons. And a quarterback that's striking iron right now. So,
okay,
all right, I'm gonna go Panthers, and this is why I'm going Panthers.
My man.
Our defense gets after this offensive line. That's what I need to see. The defense wins this game for us. I'm gonna take the under. I think surprisingly, this is going to be a lower scoring game. I'm saying this: the Panthers find a way to win this 17-14. Ooh. How about that? Maybe. Or 2017. Let's go 2017 a little bit. All right. Next is Bucks at Rams. Are we Rams straight down the board?
I think we probably are.
All right. Speak now or forever hold your Buccaneer. All right. So, and that's a 10-point line. You know what I think he convinced me. I was trying to think this is going to be a game. Because the Bucks, man, that offense, though, man, what's his name? Who's the wide receiver for them?
Evans.
Oh gosh, he was a monster in that game. So interesting, but I think clearly is that the Rams defensive line is going to have a field day. Hardest game for me to pick so far right now is Tennessee at Atlanta. Falcons favored by 4. I feel like every week I pick Tennessee, they lose, and every week I pick their opponent, they win. Who do you guys got in this? Go ahead, Greg.
I got Atlanta. They're just too powerful in offense, and Tennessee, I'm the same way with you. When I think they can win, they really disappoint me. They are the Titans. I got that from the Around the NFL podcast. They are the Titans, and it's just I don't believe in them.
Mariota's terrible.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm with Atlanta, CK.
I can't see a situation where the Falcons don't win this. Just to be honest,
I tell you, if they don't win this and they lose because of their defense, that is the writing is on the wall for Dan Quinn. Their defense has to get better under a defensive coach, and they're just so erratic of a team because Matt Ryan can be sensational or he can throw the dumbest picks in the world. He's kind of like, I think he's even better than Phillip Rivers because he's less picky than him at times. But I don't know what to think about the Titans. Now, the game of the week, I think it's the game of the week or one of the games of the week. Cowboys at Saints. The Cowboys on the road favored 2.5. 47 over under, and I'm going first here, guys. I'm picking the Cowboys to knock off the Saints. I have never been a Cowboy believer, but really their team is looking pretty darn complete at this point, and they're pushing the ball down the field. They're right now, I think maybe the top. I mean, they are arguably the top team in the NFC.
When you play the worst 3 teams in the NFC to start your season, it's very easy to be 3-0. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, who have they got? They've had Miami. They played
Miami, who's the worst team in the NFL. They played the Giants, who were a terrible team.
Oh, yeah.
And they played the
Redskins.
Redskins, who were a terrible team.
Oh, man.
So they haven't played a good team now.
Don't talk me out of
With all
this.
that being said, I feel like if they were playing the Saints, full-scale Saints, they would win this game. Hands down. But because you picked the Cowboys, I'm going to go with the Saints because the Saints impressed me against the Seahawks this weekend. And I don't think that the Cowboys are all they built up to be. They are not a 3-0 team unless they play those 3 games. So I'm going to go Saints.
Who you got, CK?
I'm going Cowboys, man. I think that defense just overwhelms Bridgewater. And he just starts to put himself in a position where he's making poor decisions. I don't think that the offense of the Cowboys is going to be doing much against that defense of the Saints, but I think the defense of the Cowboys just dominates the game.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're going to win this handedly. I feel like the Cowboys are going to I think they've got some salty feelings towards the Saints. Didn't they lose? Didn't they have a great game against the Saints? Was it last year or the year before? They did beat them. Was it in Dallas though?
They held them like 8 points or something like that.
This is where actually I'm interested in the under on this. If I was going, I'm not a real bettor though. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really. So don't take any of this as betting advice, folks, because I'm not. I hate to lose money. If you know me, it took me 5 years to buy this fucking microphone. Right? I hate to lose money. Right? So, interesting. I always feel like, strangely, sometimes games you expect to be explosive, there's one on the docket each week where it's a snoozer.
Yeah.
And the defenses wins, and I could see this being one of those. All right, so look, we are at the end of the show. We've done so much. We've had 2 guests tonight. We've had betting and picks. We've had Cam. You know what? Cam Newton will be the story of this podcast until he isn't. You know, I mean, until he
podcast, right?
What's that?
He's what started this podcast, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty close to it. I mean, we started in 2013 because we just thought we were doing so good. We were going to wait another year, and we said we got to go. We got to start in the middle of the season. We win the 8 games or some crap like that. So, but yeah, Cam Newton has brought life to the franchise. In Cam Newton we trust. In Cam Newton's foot must heal, and shoulder we will. Come back, Cam. Guys, you got any ice up? Let's do some ice and fools up real quick. Do you guys? Ooh, that's a terrible camera look. So we'll go back to that. What do you guys? What do you got for me, Greg?
Okay. I am going to. Well, I'm gonna preface this real quick with I am a true believer that the NFL and football games are a television show, and because of that, they are driven by ratings. And I feel like that sometimes, because television shows are driven by ratings, the outcome of the game or the show is driven by what the NFL wants the ratings to be. So I'm not saying that there is a complete throw for a team or refs to give teams the game, but I do feel like sometimes refs make calls based on what the best ratings are going to be. So I want to go back to the Kansas City-Baltimore game last week, where I'm watching the game and I watched Patrick Mahomes get tackled and go to the ground, and then the camera zooms in on the referee and Patrick Mahomes talking, and the referee shakes his head no to Patrick Mahomes. Then Patrick Mahomes throws his arms up in the air while he's sitting on his ass, throws his arms up in the air, and the referee kind of shakes his head yes and throws the flag. So without any kind of review, it was a horse collar tackle, okay? And I'll give it to him. It was a horse collar tackle. But the referee didn't even look at the review, didn't even look at the replay. He just totally went off Mahomes' word of what happened and changed the call right then. So I am icing up NFL referees. Stop calling the game based on what the ratings are going to be and the teams you want to win. Call the game the way it's supposed to be called. He missed that call. It should have never been reviewed or a flag thrown on it. He believed Mahomes the whole way, and I can't stand seeing that in the NFL. Ice up referees in the NFL because you are doing a terrible job this year. So,
too young to get that call. Too young to get that call. CK, ice up. CK, what you got for us?
Man, I've been kind of debating on what I wanted to put here, and the thing I have to go with is something that's a duplicate. Somebody else brought this up. Mike Vick talking about why Cam Newton should stop being Cam Newton.
Did you see Darren Gant's tweet?
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. But I can't even begin to fathom what goes through your mind to be able to be Michael Vick and criticize Cam Newton for being somebody who's just himself. You know what? Cam Newton is the most genuine, generous person that I think nobody in this world can debate that. There's plenty of evidence to prove that he is, right? And you're going to sit there as Michael Vick, come at Cam Newton and tell him that he can't dress the way he wants to dress? Are you freaking kidding? Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are some things that as Panthers fans, yeah, we wish he probably wouldn't wear that nightgown that, Grandma Cece wore 20 years ago. Sure. But at the same time, it's not a place, especially of Michael Vick, to be able to tell Cam Newton, you need to stop focusing on that and focus on football. That is the most just demeaning thing that he could say, especially after he's gone through what he's gone through, and to be able to be that judgmental. I mean, are you kidding me, bro? Ice up, son.
Good ice up pick, and I think that we should get this is a tip of the cap, and hats off to Steve Smith for how he has been as an analyst and given football insight. I feel like he's been honest and true to his positions, and I think that this is another example. And someone brought up Reggie Bush in the chat, and that is that these guys who may only they have a limited ability to be commentators. You're right, is that we don't know. They're good enough to be on TV, but they're not good enough to be great commentators. And I think that they feel baited. I think they get baited and pressured into making hot takes on these shows. And this is a guy that's forgotten. In many ways, he might just need the paycheck. Who knows? Who knows at this point? My ice up pick this week goes to Ron Rivera for putting Darrell Williams back in the game. And I'm sorry, is that, look, I'm not going to blame Darrell Williams anymore. God bless the dude getting out there and trying. Oh, my goodness. But it is oh, my goodness. And I feel like, boy, how can we never get the left tackle anywhere close to being right? No. It has been so atrocious. And Ken D is in the chat room. How has things gotten worse since Byron Bell was our left tackle? They have progressively gotten worse. We had a momentary brief lapse of okayness with Michael Orr. But then, between Matt Khalil and Darrell Williams, our left tackle, you might as well not even play him out there. You might as well just put a tight end on the other side all the time. Get Greg Little in there. And until then, ice up to everybody that's involved with Darrell Williams being the left tackle. Put him at guard. Put him at guard. It's just that simple. Right? You guys are not fair to him. So ice up. All right, you guys are listening to the C3 Panthers podcast. It rolls on and on and on and on because you guys love it, obviously, because you keep calling, you keep listening, you keep chatting, and we love you. Right? So we are
recording the chat at midnight.
Yeah. I mean, look at the viewers. The viewers still where we started. Where we started is where we end, with great fans and great listeners calling into the Cat Calls line. The number's 252-228-5098. Subscribe, like, rate, review, help us get found. We are currently the number one. If you go into iTunes, I have, anytime I run into anybody with an iPhone, I say, hey, look up my podcast on iTunes, because I don't know how the rankings look, and I secretly think that your computer is following I don't secretly think, they're looking at your ISP. So I wonder if the rankings they give me are the real rankings that other people get. And C3 Panthers podcast is number one in iTunes, right?
Number one.
Take that. Go write some reviews. Thank you for your support. Greg, tell them how they can get after you and the podcast, which I was on this past week. Go Ninja, go Ninja, go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, you can find me at the Bad Daddy 52 directly on Twitter. I also run the podcast. It's a Super Civil Servants podcast. We talk about comics and just movies and TV shows and all kinds of stuff. Anything fun you like to listen to. I heard somebody in the chat earlier. I think they're not chat, but the Cat Calls. Their name was Jedi something. hit me up at SCS Podcast 1. We're doing a Star Wars review all the way to episode 9. Either way, Tony, you were on my show last week. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was Secret of the Ooze. Amazing show. Fun to listen to. Y'all check us out. Gave you the information, and hit me up.
All right, CK, man, it's a blast hanging out with you, brother. And, dude, I'm excited to go to these games with you.
I know, dude. Super stoked. And I'm glad that, to some degree, I'm glad that it's happening with us, having some hope, right? Going to Jacksonville. I mean, going down there for the Jacksonville game. There's hope and there's some excitement for actually being there. What I'm not excited about is I'm looking at the forecast, and it does not look like Charlotte's getting any colder in the next 2 weeks.
Oh, God. Yeah. That it is hot as hell in Hades in that stadium at times, and that's when you're like, give us a new stadium. And if we can't get a new stadium, just put one of those real stretchable tarps over the top for us.
There you go, like a pool.
Right. CK, you're at Codizzle Allen, correct?
You got it.
All right. Yeah, and you're right. We all did have a momentary. I'm not gonna lie. I had a momentary sense of panic when I heard the stuff about Cam Newton, and then I was thinking, I'm going to 5 games still. Or 4 or 5. And I was like, and it's not, I don't mind going to losing. I'm going to be with this team ride or die. But it is financially stressful to drive 4 hours. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of time and energy and money. And then you got to go muscle it out. But we committed. We're committed to be on this show. We'll be here after the game for the post game. And I'm going to try to get, my goal is to try to get an independent interview with Joe Person this week to find out more about this Lis Franc. So look forward to bonus podcasts, great material after show. We'll see you on Sunday.
See you on Sunday.
Peace.
After a win. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And if we win, dude, all of a sudden, man, that Jacksonville game, we're going to be pumped.